Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast, ATI Podcast. Barrett Lewis and Josh Welch here.
What's up, what's up?
We wanted to get things started off by talking about the cookout and the success that I feel like the cookout was.
Dude, it was fantastic. I had, like, a really good time. I'm sure everybody there could attest to how good of a time I had, so.
Yeah, I was kind of locked in the danger zone on the grill there.
Right.
So I was, like, kind of in and out of what was going on up until the time we started shooting out some fireworks, but
yeah,
we smoked, I think it was about 10 pounds plus of ribs.
Oh, man.
And
it was so
smoked some hot dogs for the kids, and we did a smoked dip. It was kind of like a spicy white queso dip, and so that went over very well, all the smoked items. But then the ladies were so kind to, in the house, work on our side. So it's corn casserole, if you've ever had that. It's fantastic.
It was all good, man.
We had some sweet potato pie,
the desserts,
mac and cheese.
The desserts were good.
Yeah. Dunkaroo dip.
We had, Dunkaroo dip. We had a dirt cake. Yeah, man. I was about six cans deep in a 6-ringer of Natty Light. And yeah, it was a good day, man.
Yeah,
we had a blast. I think everybody had a good time. You guys shot off some awesome fireworks. Like, it was a memorable July 4th. Even my kids, man. The kids had a fun time hanging out with your kids and, all the other kids and stuff. So it was a great time, man.
Yeah, I think almost all the kids said it was the best 4th of July ever. So
yeah, that's what my boys said.
I wasn't even like necessarily. I mean, there was definitely a thought behind trying to make it a good time for everybody. So,
right.
We actually, outside of the episode that we're going to release, the cookout, kind of the theme behind that, just kind of the spirit of things. But we, in fact, were having a cookout to boot with the kind of the ATI brain trust and our close friends, and so you saw some of that documented on social media.
Right.
And I think we all, everybody ate until they were absolutely miserable. People were taking naps. People slept in the next day for 12 plus hours. And,
dude, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. Like, every time I came inside to use the restroom, because I broke the seal, obviously, because I was smashing beer, but every time I think I ate a rib. Every time I walked out the front of your house, I ate a rib. And then I got home and I had tan shorts on, and I looked down, dude, and where my pockets are and near my butt, it was just nothing but sauce and rib juice all over, caked all over my pants.
What a mess, man. What a mess.
Yeah, it was a great time, man. I ate so many ribs.
Yeah, I've got one of those Pit Boss pellet grills, and that's where it's at.
Oh, dude.
Anything's
awesome.
Got the pellet grill system going on. I know there's Traeger's. There's, I think there's some Alabama, another branch. I think even Charboro's doing it now.
Yeah.
Coruscant has some, but
I got to get away from my propane, man.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a good, clean.
It's a taste thing.
Yeah, I agree. I will say some of the best steaks I've ever had were made on a propane grill, though.
Really?
Yeah, but steaks are more about meat, like the meat itself,
right.
Quality of the meat, the cut of the meat, and so on. But yeah, so success with the cookout. We appreciate everybody's submissions for the cookout special as well. We had submissions, of course, from Marcus from Pfister, Doug from Search Party Pictures. We had submissions from Bert, who did our Cato tribute episode with us. We had several folks, Skylar back on, so on and so on. So we really appreciate everybody's submissions that they sent us. And I think that there was some quite entertaining ones in there for sure. Mr. PQ might have taken the cake, but Bert was certainly in contention as well. So
maybe we'll do a poll. We'll do a cookout 4th of July message poll and see who dropped the hottest
track. I think that's a good idea for sure. Again, appreciate everything cookout related, whether it was the literal cookout that we're having or the special. We appreciate everybody's participation and helping out. both successful endeavors, I feel like. So
Yeah, absolutely.
maybe we'll make it an annual tradition.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome, man. I mean, like I said, I had a blast, so I'm always down for more of it.
For sure. We want to get into some current events as well. So, of course, one of the coolest things that I've seen in the last 24, 48 hours is the ads that Gavin Newsom's been doing for his re-election of governor campaign. So he's got a governor campaign going on right now for 2022. And he did actually a targeted ad, but he didn't only just broadcast it in his state, he broadcast it in Florida specifically.
Right.
And it kind of went right at DeSantis and the abortion restrictions, the, CRT stuff he's trying to do, going after anything that was COVID related that DeSantis was attacking specifically and so defiant of to begin with. Like, he's just calling DeSantis out left and right.
Right.
And a lot of people are saying, well, it's got there's some forecasting going on here because Gavin Newsom particularly if Joe Biden's not going to run again in 2024, Gavin Newsom might be a prime candidate for the Democrat Party. And a lot of people are looking to DeSantis.
Well,
in place of Trump.
Right. So yeah, I've heard that he's kind of like the second in command for, the MAGA reign. If anything were to happen with Trump not being capable of running in 2024, whether that be a prosecution or whatever, if that does happen, it's never happened.
DeSantis is just about the biggest Trump surrogate that there is out there in any politics.
So you could, what I'm saying is, I guess that alt-right wave, if you want to call it that red wave is absolutely going to flood to DeSantis if that happens. So it's cool to actually see another candidate saying, hey, if Joe can't get it done, I'll get it done. I'm not scared to call these people out. You know what I mean? So good on Newsom for doing what he did. What I've
also liked, what's been very cool to see is, like in North Carolina, specifically the governor there, I read just before we got on the podcast today. It seems like we're always getting like really good stuff right before we get on the podcast that we can't go too deep in. But I know that the governor in North Carolina made it so that women would not be prosecuted if they were to get abortions, and the providers, he signed an executive order.
Now, this is a Republican, right?
No.
Is he a Democrat?
Yeah, I can look it up real quick.
Either way, that's amazing. You know what I mean? That's cool that this person's stepping up and protecting Roe, you know what I mean? And protecting women's health and rights, you know what I mean? So good on him for stepping up.
Yeah, he's a Democratic governor.
Okay, he is a Democrat.
Yeah,
okay.
Roy Cooper.
Well, good for him.
That's his name.
Good job, man.
But yeah, it's refreshing to see. I mean, a lot of those states.
Now, Newsom did that too. Right after, right?
It was already legal in their state as it was, but I think he signed a executive order that they would be a safe haven, essentially. So anybody from other states could come to the state free of prosecution.
I gotcha. Now, here's something interesting that I've been saving to talk to you about for the podcast. Did you know that Gavin Newsom's wife is a conservative media personality, supposedly?
She's
not anymore?
Kimberly Guilfoyle, that's Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend now. She's
the one, really?
Yeah. Yeah, they used to be married.
They're not married anymore.
No.
Okay. So I read that and I was like, really? I did not know that. So that's wild.
She was the one that
was
remarried crazy. Now? Oh, yeah, he's remarried. He's got some boys.
Okay. Okay. See, that just shows you how much more research I need to put into Newsom.
I mean, if his current wife might be too, for all I know, but not to my knowledge. I'm pretty confident that's Kimberly Guilfoyle, and she's with Donald Trump Jr. That's kind of they were personally attacking Newsom.
I got
and a lot of stuff that they were doing, especially during the COVID, when COVID was kicking off in 2020.
Right.
But, Newsom was one of the few governors that was kind of taking the charge, along with Cuomo from New York, but his fate wasn't so good.
Yeah.
But they were two of the most, let's say, critically applauded, I would say, from health agencies on their vigilance against the COVID wave that was coming into the United States, in March and April of 2020 in particular, and get a lot of attention with doing they would do daily press briefings and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see where the 2024, general election goes with the presidential candidates that we have. We've been critical of Joe Biden on the show. I would really like to see somebody else because I'm very confident that Joe Biden cannot beat a returning Donald Trump, and I'm very confident that he could not beat DeSantis either.
Only way he's going to have any shot in hell of being even in contention is if he steps up to the plate and starts doing shit, because he's literally done nothing. I mean, there was that what's the host from the Young Turks, she talked about it. He has literally not done anything for the electorate. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean,
he's not done enough. That's for sure.
You know, but yeah,
And
I mean, he's made false promises, and I know, but he talks about how important having the Senate seats are, but what have we done with the Senate seats? You can't even get Democrats to be a Democrat, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
well,
just
we have
been
a House
failure.
majority, and we can get things done in the House from time to time. But the Senate is a deadlock.
And if you talk to people, they're going to tell you, but they're going to be like, well, what's been good since Joe Biden? What's been good for me personally since Joe Biden's been in office? Gas has went up, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, people are suffering with, buying food and, getting health care, and then this shit's happening with Roe.
I'm going to say something that's controversial. As much as I talk on Trump, while he was in office, I was better off financially, personally.
Right. I mean, you really have to look at it on, a personal level, like how things affect that person while that president is in office. You know what I mean? People are going to reflect on that when they head to the polls because it's their personal life.
So speaking of politics and presidential hopefuls and so on and so forth, somebody we haven't talked about explicitly here on the podcast, which is another Missourian, and I love to rep our Missourian brethren, is Jason Kander. Jason Kander is amazing. He was, had his day in the sun in politics. You might remember him. He was in the state legislature to start, and then he was our Secretary of State for the state.
Right.
And then he ran for Senate. And whenever he ran for Senate, his real popular ad was him disassembling a gun with a blindfold on, if you recall that, and he was a Democrat.
Right.
So that was his ad whenever he was running for Senate, and I believe that was 2014.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range. And he had only lost by, hell, it might have been 2016, actually, because I think kind of comparatively, and I'm going to get to this point, he kind of got critically applauded and hand-selected for essentially the next Obama. The next big thing in the Democratic Party by Obama himself while he was president, brought Kander into his office, talked to him for 90 minutes in his office, and really encouraged and tried to give him some words of encouragement to run for president in particular because he felt like he was the future of politics. That is a direct quote from the president of the United States, former president, that is, Barack Obama, that he was the next big thing coming in politics. So Jason Kander, fantastic guy from Missouri, Army veteran, public servant. His parents are public servants. Comes from a long line of great people, Jewish to boot. So for my Jewish brethren out there. But yeah, so just a great guy. And he kind of fell off the map. Well, reason he fell off the map, PTSD. And he had, because he was in so many of these high stakes kind of hostage and negotiation scenarios where he was kind of plain clothes type investigator, special forces in the Army in particular. So he would go in and he would meet with people from the Taliban or thugs that were trading with other thugs, and just a lot of, kind of special operations type stuff, special intelligence stuff. So he was relatively high up in the military. He had a very successful career. He was doing law as well, so he's a lawyer by trade. Essentially, he was going to run for mayor of Kansas City, kind of to help get some of that executive experience under his belt further in preparation to be president. And he just and he would have handily won Kansas City. He's from Kansas City.
Right.
He's popular. Everybody knows him. Even, common votes, Democrats are going to vote for him on top of that.
Right.
He would probably sway some Republican. Typically, even at the city level, people are a little bit more independent in their voting.
More independent people.
So Kander, just a great guy. I can't speak enough good stuff about him. Well, he's got a podcast, actually, that's been out for about a year now, Majority 54. So if you guys like listening to, and they pick out, generally the idea of that premise of that is they pick out one current event, hot topic, usually in politics related, but sometimes they mix in a little bit of other stuff. And they typically bring on a guest to discuss it, and it's him and Ravi Gupta. And the two of them usually bring on another guest. They discuss whatever that is. So, like, for example, whenever Roe v. Wade got overturned, they did an episode much like we did and gave some resources and some things on there. So if you get the chance, definitely check it out. But also, he being Jason Kander was on WTF Pod with Mark Maron. And if anybody likes Mark Maron or his podcast, it's a fantastic episode where he kind of details what I say and, from his firsthand account. So, yeah, if you just want to gloss over, you think the guy sounds interesting, go check out Mark Maron's WTF Pod. And he was actually on the episode for the 4th of July. Mark Maron intentionally got something a little more patriotic related and brought him on the show. And he talked about his new book, Jason Kander's new book, and his history of PTSD and his issues and struggles with suicide in particular. So really interesting listen. Other current events, I went to the Fister and Bastard show last Saturday. Excellent turnout. Was at the Sinkhole in St. Louis. If you haven't been there.
Time, huh?
Yeah, really good time. And there was a lot of people in there. I mean, the place was packed. It's a relatively small punk venue, but the people there, the staff there were great. Well managed. Just a really good time.
So good to still seeing shows and venues like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I love it.
It was a return to the scene in particular for Fister, but Bastard as well, in the sense that, since COVID happened, opportunities and things were limited, and the two of them, I mean, they killed it. Bastard played a 45-minute set, and Fister played at least a 45-minute set, if not an hour. Fister ended up blowing the power panel out, the circuit panel out, yeah, so there was no power for about 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, shit.
And 75% of the front end, I want to say.
Damn.
Yeah, so it was pretty wild. And
overloaded it, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Damn.
They were running 2 full stacks, both of them. Yeah,
That's so fucking bad.
And all of their lights and all their fog machines and shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Took them for a ride there, but it was a good time. Did the full treatment. They treated it just like any other show that they would perform at. Those guys are pros. And, of course, we've had Jason from Bastard, who was playing drums. Marcus actually filled in on second guitar as well with Bastard and played with Fister, and we've had Marcus on the show as well. So
Marcus doubled up?
Yeah, Marcus doubled up.
Damn,
double
baby.
duty, man. His hands had to be cramping by the end of the night. But he killed it, man. He slayed and still brought the energy.
I hate that I missed it. I heard it was a hell of a show, so.
Yeah, really good turnout. So I'm glad to see that those guys got the warm welcome back to the live music scene that well deserved. And my God, them motherfuckers are the loudest motherfuckers. And good, because that's the thing that I used to go for back whenever I was in bands and stuff too.
When you left?
Yeah, I was definitely. I thought I might have been a little tutored, but I'm like, no, I didn't partake in too much of that before I went in, and my head was ringing, and I was like, I think it's the sound. So let me try testing my hearing against my phone audio and my car audio. I'm like, oh yeah, everything sounds tinny. That's definitely what's going on here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really good time. Really fantastic time
for me on that.
Next time, especially standing that close, I'm going to be wearing eardrums. I'm getting ready to turn 35 next week, so I'm not getting any younger with that.
Yeah, you better plug them ears up so you don't blow anything.
Dude, I'm half deaf as it is now.
Me too.
Anyways, I got to tell my wife 4 or 5 times. It's like, what?
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, anywho. Thor: Love and Thunder coming out this weekend, so I really do want to see that.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I'm really excited for that. Like the visuals and that just from the trailer.
It was on our list of movies that we were most excited for on our first episode.
And they say this is maybe one of Christian Bale's best performances. Is what I've been
I've
reading.
heard that it's the best Marvel villain performance, which is
That's
tall order.
Shocking, man.
Whenever you're talking Tom Hiddleston as Loki and Josh Brolin as Thanos, so
right.
And I mean, and there's been some other acceptable, outings, if you will.
Well, Marvel's kind of like, I don't want to say
very cookie cutter,
flat, but it's kind of dying off slowly. In my opinion. Yeah,
with the Infinity in Endgame, that took a lot out of the fan base emotionally.
Right.
The roller coaster that went on, and we're gonna kill all these people, but then we're gonna bring them back. Well,
But it's good to see him.
It was necessary.
That's where
for
I was
sure.
going with that. Yeah.
Oh my God, please. Yeah. When I was a kid, I'd never dreamed anything like this has happened, and
right.
Even when it started to happen in like 2008 with Iron Man, this whole, phase 1 of the MCU, I was like, there's no way they're going to sustain this. I was just so very pessimistic about it because I'd seen it my entire life,
Right.
The failed Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie. I could, just go on and on.
Which, dude, when I was younger, I used to fucking watch that movie all the time.
Well, yeah, it was a little hard to get your hands on because it flopped.
What's his name that played the bald guy? I can't think of his name.
No, you're referring to the Mark Frost.
Yeah, the terrible
Four movies. Those are bad too. No, I'm talking 10 years plus before.
Oh,
that.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, because it got blackballed. It got made.
Damn.
And it is rough.
I gotta watch it.
Oh man, when I was in college, we got fucking ripped and loaded and just sat and a room of us full of us just sat and watched it, and it's bad, dude. It is up there. It's almost I don't know if you've ever seen the Nick Fury, David Hasselhoff TV movie.
Oh no.
Oh, it's a real thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
You got to see
I'm
that.
interested.
So it is something to behold for sure.
Oh,
I mean, you can go back. I don't know. When I was younger, I liked the first Captain America movie, but I just wanted superhero stuff in front of me. You know?
Right.
I liked the shitty old Spider-Man cartoons and
Oh, yeah.
the Justice League.
What was the Batman Beyond?
Batman Beyond, yeah.
That was
so
fantastic.
Batman Beyond
That was the animated series, right?
That was kind of the sequel to the Batman animated series from the 90s because it was the old Bruce Wayne with the younger.
Yeah.
But
I used to watch the crap out of that though.
No, it was good.
Yeah.
No, I liked it. It kind of had an industrial music vibe to it, new metalish type stuff like with the music. So that's one thing with the Batman animated series type stuff. Music's always been big. You know, they implemented, I believe, the Danny Elfman soundtrack even, you know, so the guy who did even the Tim Burton stuff, they actually used his soundtrack for the animated series that started out actually in the early 90s.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, they really, a lot of attention to detail. Paul Dini was heavy involved in that, also a big comic book writer for years. And, yeah, just all good shit. Actually, Warner Brothers usually does pretty good with the animated stuff, so.
Yeah.
But back to Thor, and it's looking like actually this might be one of the lower rated Marvel movies. I didn't read any official reviews from any, you know, accredited, I guess, reporters or entertainment reporters, that is, in particular. But right now it's trending at a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes. And last night was, or well, I guess it's tonight. Tonight's Thursday. So, yeah, they're going to be doing the midnight showing that they do, but they do it at 7 p.m. I don't, how's that make any sense? But whatever.
Right. The premiere night preview.
Yeah, right. The preview of the preview.
Right.
It's like everything else now.
Yeah.
But
Just trying to get you to come in. That's it.
Well, hell, I would go see this. I mean,
yeah.
Natalie Portman's in it. She's always been a crush of mine.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, celebrity crush.
That's Padme.
Yeah. I know. It started for me, but I'm close in age, so that's a qualifier. I saw Leon the Professional when it came out, and she's a little girl on that, and I was a little boy at the time, and I thought she was the cutest thing ever. And as she was in stuff over the years, I'm like, oh, that's that girl.
Yeah.
And I remembered, so like Star Wars.
Yep.
She was in that. Garden State. Vendetta. She was in that. V for Vendetta. She was in that.
Yeah.
You know, Closer. She was in that.
Yep.
I mean, I've seen her in all kinds of stuff over the years. And the Thor movies, you know, she's a part of that franchise. It's Jane Foster.
Yeah.
And she's looking mighty fine in this one.
Nothing wrong with Natalie Portman.
No, nothing.
10 out of 10. Would recommend.
Absolutely. And then some. So what else, Josh? Anything else current event-wise that we want to talk before we get Mr. Heb? We're going to have Heb on.
I don't know, man. It's hot. The heat, miserable heat. I'm glad we're going to get a little bit of relief. I mean, it's Thursday night, so.
I'm always about a little bit of relief. If you know
yeah. Oh, I feel you. Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad that this weekend is supposed to be, I think, in the mid to low 80s.
Yeah.
This is Josh with your weather report.
Here's Joshua. The Black U weather forecast.
But no, I'm excited for that. So
it's gonna rain.
Nationwide by predators.
Alrighty, folks, we are back with you with Mr. Jason Heob of NoPoint and Grave Neighbors while he chugs a beer. How you doing, sir?
Bush beer.
That's
Cheers.
hell yeah.
Attaboy.
Shit, I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're fantastic, sir.
Fantastic, sir.
We're so happy to have you on, sir. Been wanting to mix it up with you. I think we've been talking about this since we first got started here, having you on the show. So
Yeah, got really into it after the Cato episode.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and again, appreciate you so much doing that for us.
Yeah,
You know,
man.
Oh yeah, dude, no problem.
Your submission was fantastic and awesome and really added to the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't not do it. I mean, I think I first met the dude in like 98.
Wow.
So like he was fucking 16 because he dropped out, got his GED, and went to college. It was like,
Yeah,
okay, who the
does
fuck
this?
does that? Drops out just to go to college and
Right.
hang out. So,
right.
That sounds like a very Cato thing.
oh, absolutely.
Were you in college whenever you met him?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was my second year.
Oh, okay. Damn. I knew you were older than us, but I didn't realize you were that much older than us.
Oh, son, I'm shit.
Well,
I'll be
you
43 in 2 weeks. So
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
yeah,
You're just in your prime.
Hell yeah.
I guess. If 43 is your prime and still playing punk rock, then that's fucking me.
Hey,
yeah,
man.
brother.
Hey, that's fucking sweet is what that is.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
That's awesome that you're still doing that.
I mean, and like, I don't know, I guess a couple years ago it hit me after I played a show. I was like, holy shit, I'm the guy.
I might be the oldest person here.
No, not even that.
Oh.
I've accepted that. It was more of I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the old dude playing that I looked up to when I was a kid. I was like, man, that guy's old as hell. And he's still fucking playing. That's so cool.
right.
Right.
It's like, holy fuck. Well, that's me now. Well, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
I'm
dude.
still looking up to you, dude. That's badass. I wish I
Yeah.
was still doing it.
Working schlub Monday through Friday, fucking rock star, want to be on the weekends. So
Hey, there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that, my man, whatsoever. So
Yeah.
speaking of Rockstar on the weekends, we got to get in and start talking about some of what you got going on. I know you've been doing some recording. Which project are we
Yeah.
recording with?
no point.
No point. So
We recorded 3 songs. We're almost done. We got vocals to come back and do for Jesse, and then one more layer of guitars to do.
No Point's a 4-piece, isn't it?
Yes, it's a 4-piece. It's myself on bass, Barry Reeves on drums, Jesse Absher on guitar, and Jay Wilson on guitar. And right now we're rocking as a 3-piece because Jay just reopened a cabinet shop that he started with his dad like 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I guess it was like June 1st, he quit his job up here, a union carpenter, and reopened full time. So he's playing catch up and to get caught up on jobs that he has. And then hopefully end of the month, middle of next month, he'll be at a place where he can start coming back up for practice. Like we haven't seen him at practice since like January.
Oh, wow.
He had a whole bunch of side work that he had lined up. And like the guy that was lining up for him is like, fuck it, man, just do it. So he turned in his notice at his job and he's doing it now. So
Yeah.
Well, good for him.
hopefully he'll be back real soon. And then we'll be back full force as a 4-piece. And
So how long have you guys been together?
first practice was like first or second week of December of 2018.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, well, you guys have done a lot of moving and shaking in that time, but
Almost 4 years. EP out of full length and a couple of singles that we dropped during COVID.
Oh, wow. Doing fucking work.
Yeah.
is what you guys are recording now, is that working toward an EP or is that to go toward a full length?
We're not sure 100% completely. Whatever we decide to do after this, this is going to be, once everything gets done, we're going to just hold on to it and then use that as a teaser single
Sure.
Oh, cool.
for whether it's an EP or a full length or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna put it out as a single. Like remember back in the day, like the cardboard sleeve stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So yeah, we're gonna do that. It's 2 originals on one side that are like bleed into each other. They're both short songs, and then the B side is gonna be a cover of Tom Dooley.
All right.
Hang down your head, Tom Dooley.
Yeah.
Hang down your head. Yeah, we covered that and just skate punked the fuck out of it. So
Yeah. Although that would be definitely a fun one to do in that type of rendition.
oh yeah, except it is hard to record that bitch without vocals because it's the same 2 chords
Right.
for 3 minutes.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
how that goes. Yeah.
And just to like remember where you're at, it's kind of wild, but
You kind of get the highway vision whenever you're doing something like that. You know? You can zone out real easily.
Real
and
bad.
That's the thing. It's kind of like, people trash like super simple songs, but actually it takes a focus to.
Right.
They're fucking hard.
Yeah.
To sit there and just grind it. Dude.
Right.
Yeah, one of my old bands did a Johnny Cash song, and it was the same way, except 2/3 of the way through, there's a key change, and you just had to hope you were counting right, and you all did the key change at the same time. Otherwise,
Otherwise, it sounded like shit, like a car
Oh,
crash.
yeah, you get real bad real fast.
For sure, man. So yeah, that's kind of, we've talked to several different people. That's kind of the way the music business is. It really seems to even go more so now is kind of that single approach to start, tease your material, get it out there, see what people are feeling, and then kind of locking into whatever mood that you tapped into, depending on, which singles that people gravitate towards, and then maybe use that for a future release, an EP or full length or whatever the case is.
Right. That's what we plan on doing with this. I've wanted to release a tape for a while since it became a cool thing again, because I remember being a kid and just being like, oh yeah, gotta go to Walmart to get the new Fill in the Blank tape of whatever. And then we had written these 2 songs and decided to do a cover song. And I was like, why don't we just put it out on a tape, like a single?
There you go.
There you go.
And then, like, my other band members are, like, besides Jay, are like 10 years younger than I am. And they just kind of looked at me. I'm like, so they were like, what's a single? I'm like, you don't remember going to Walmart, get the little cardboard things with the tape in it? And they just stared at me blankly. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm an old man. Fuck.
Yeah, what was that place in Farmington? Was it called Coast to Coast Sounds?
Yes, Coast to Coast Sounds.
They had a shit ton of those in there in one section, I remember.
Oh, yeah. Like, and what's crazy is I grew up in St. John. So once one of us got our license, like, we would drive over there on, when did CDs come out? Like Tuesdays?
Yeah, usually.
Yeah.
We would get out of school on Tuesday and, like, head straight over to get whatever it was that we wanted to go get.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, one of them that I specifically remember was whenever they released the Nirvana from the Muddy Bakes of the Wishkah.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, a carload of us, like, crammed into my Monte Carlo, like 6 of us, and drove over to get, and we each bought the CD.
That's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Because we're like, this is fucking amazing. It's...
Yeah, everybody needed it.
And it was all, like, live stuff and B-sides, plus the one unreleased song that they put out. And
yeah.
So yeah, we drove 40 minutes from St. John across 32 to go to Farmington to get that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. People don't, especially younger people, they don't realize what went into back in the day, how if you wanted an album, you had to put in the legwork.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Yeah, you had to work your ass off.
Everything's instant and digital now, so.
Back then I had never gone anywhere that wasn't off of 55. I'm like, man, I don't know, Farmington, that's like 30 miles on 32 whenever 32 was still scary. And it's a totally different world now.
We were so reliant on physical media back then, which it's making its comeback. Like you mentioned, tapes are coming back.
Right.
There's actually a huge tape manufacturer in Missouri specifically that's one of the leading folks right now, and pretty reasonable price wise, and
that's cool.
They've come so far with that technology, it's you can still yet get that analog sound, and kind of there's been kind of a perfect storm too with the vinyl shortage that there is, because a lot of that's contingent on petroleum. Yeah. And then secondly, I think it was between like Adele and Taylor Swift, they bought up like a bunch of reserve vinyl and like just chewed up the market.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah. Bands, you're at least 18 months out on a vinyl now.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Ridiculous. And that's the type of stuff that just irritates me, because for the most part, the people that buy that don't give a fuck.
Right.
Right.
About the sound quality. They just wanted to have it to post on the fucking internet.
Right.
Yeah.
Look what I bought today. Right.
Right. It's dumb.
Or conversation piece in the house, or maybe whenever they have a friend come over to look cool.
Right. It's a coffee table book that they're going to set next to their TV on a shelf and not ever listen to it, because they just listen to it on their fucking phone. But
I know. And it's funny because PQ and I were talking about this a few episodes back. We were talking about how the new Converge album was coming out, Blood Moon, and we bought it. We pre-ordered it, but it wasn't even coming out. We just literally got our copies here in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I saw that you just got yours the other day.
Yeah, it was such a delay, but yeah, that goes into that vinyl manufacturing delay. I do a lot of the Splitsville stuff, like the 2 Minutes to Late Night guys. Whenever they do the covers, like bands cover each other's stuff, and for those vinyls, it's at least 9 to 10 months out.
That's crazy.
So
yeah, like back before COVID hit, Grave Neighbors was going to put out a split record, a split 7 with another St. Louis band, Breakmouth Annie, and we each wrote a new song, and we covered one of each other's songs.
That's cool, man.
And then some drama happened with their band, and then during COVID, we're like, well, let's still try to do this. And at that point, even that early in COVID, like they're like, oh yeah, it's going to be 9 months for a test. We're like, holy fuck.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
When before, evidently, it was like 8 to 10 weeks if they were busy. Now it's 9 months for a test, and I don't even know what it is now. Like, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's absurd. But the thing about I think about the cassette thing too, there's a quicker turnaround, obviously, even though it is getting popular as well. Again, you still get that analog experience that people crave,
right?
Especially if you get a good setup for analog in and of itself. So tapes are way more affordable for bands. It's way more affordable for the consumers. You can probably spend like $4 a tape as far as production's concerned. You can turn around and sell it for $10 and everybody wins.
Right.
You know?
Right. And the same thing with CDs. You don't get that same sound that you do from a cassette or a record, but it's still that physical copy of like holding it in your hand and then the process of like getting the goddamn plastic off of it.
Oh, I know. That's the dude. Even
Breaking
my
the
vinyl
crystal.
and cassettes that I get, like,
Right,
it's so
yeah.
hard. I'm like,
Yeah.
I've got no nails.
Right. And without fail, if I get a new CD or a tape, I just trim my nails the next day. So I'm like clawing at it like a cat without claws.
I can't tell you how many LPs I've done this to. Like the sleeves on them, I've went to go to tear the plastic off and I can't get it because my nails. So then I have to like pinch it and like power pinch, pull it off, and then I've just like it'll slip out of my hand and I'll bounce it and it'll bend the corner or whatever. Like I just got it, you know, and I'll just
damn
want
it,
to kill
with the
myself.
mint.
Yeah, I know.
I was gonna put this on the record player and rip it to my phone and then put it up. There went all the value in it. Shit.
And that's another thing people don't realize is that you can, you know, rip that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, good audio quality straight from with most decent turntables nowadays, you know.
Right.
They've got that capability.
My wife has been doing that for a long time. Like, she'd go to a show, get this rare fucking 7-inch, rip it to her computer, and then put it up. Like, all of her stuff is either mint or near mint. And then I'm the heathen that buys a CD and shoves it between my gear shift and my e-brake. I'm like, well, that's where you're going to live.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, matter of convenience.
Right, yeah. The other great thing is, like, CDs are also cheap as fuck to make.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, for sure.
And the turnaround is ridiculous. Like, for our full length, we got the masters back. We already had the artwork and everything. This is NoPoints. We sent it off and got it back in 6 days.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's quick.
And I think we did like a 200 press just to last for a while. And like 6 days later, like they got dropped off at Jesse's house. I was like,
that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's quick.
And it was through Kunaki, who I got turned on to by Fro of all people.
Yeah, I forgot all about them actually.
And they do cassettes and they do DVDs too. And the turnaround is just as fast and it's a great quality product and cheap as fuck. And you get it within 10 days.
I know. Now, what shows you got coming up with NoPoint? You got anything in the near future?
NoPoint. We are playing Saturday in Bloomington at the Night Shop.
Hell yeah.
Like
we'll
this
plug
Saturday.
all that for sure. This Saturday.
It's a late show, so that should be fun. After that, for NoPoint, I think we have something towards the end of September at the Sinkhole.
Now the Sinkhole, I just went up and saw Bastard and Fister there last Saturday night.
Oh yeah, how was that?
Oh my god,
Yeah,
it was
said
insane,
it was off
dude.
the wall,
It was like tuna can, sardine can.
Ridiculously fucking loud.
Yeah, ridiculously
Dude,
loud and packed.
Just talked about that.
Yeah, dude, it was I used to play loud music too, so like I'm pretty accustomed to that, but it's been a few years since I've been like in that environment, and I was like standing right in front of Marcus the whole time, and so I could get like pictures and videos for them, and my ears were blown out, man.
Oh yeah, the last time I saw Fister was there, and it was some kind of release, I think, and they had like the laser lights going and the strobe lights going.
Yep, they did the same.
And the smoke machine going and just being their loud as fuck self.
Yeah.
And it was fucking packed. It was hot. And I think I honestly only made it about 10 minutes. And I was just like, and the entire 10 minutes, Kenny just was rattling my nuts and my heart. I'm like, fuck, man, this might be where I might have to actually fucking tap out at a show because everything is just too much. Between the pure volume and the strobe lights and the lasers going off, and then
You're like,
just this cloud of like smoke. I was just like, oh yeah, I'm going home.
It's
and I was
pretty
about
intense.
half drunk too, so I was like, this is too much going on.
It gets pretty intense for sure.
I was like, all right, dude, peace. I'm fucking bounced.
They had everything rolling at the show, and it was like they blew like the circuit panel, like tripped half the circuits in it.
Yeah.
Hardcore. Like the power was out for like a good 15 minutes, I want to say, but it was a good time.
After their first trip to Europe, they did I don't know if it was like Taste of Maplewood or something like that, but they played outside of the Crow's Nest in the back parking lot. And Levi and I went because it was before he moved to New Orleans, and they like tripped the breaker there like 3 times, and like the cops.
damn. Oh,
really? Because they were getting noise complaints.
Yeah, they're like, we could hear you at Big Bend.
Yeah.
Like by like the QT and stuff, where the QT is now. They're like, yeah, you're done. I was like, holy shit, they could hear
Time
you
to shut
that
it down.
far away.
That's
That's
about a mile or so. Isn't it?
Yeah,
that's
easy.
loud. That's loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
They are an experience. They're not just a band. Like they bring it with the live performance for sure.
I hate to say it if they hear this, I'm sorry. Like I cannot sit down and listen to a Fister record, but I will go see them most every time just because it's an experience, like you said.
It's high energy. It's explosive.
And they're still like, they're the only band to where whenever it's over, like I can't hear. Yeah, because they're just so loud, and my hearing is so completely fucked at this point that most stuff
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
know, man.
oh yeah, that wasn't bad. They're like, how are you not deaf right now? I'm like, because I can't hear for shit. But
There's that.
The damage has been done.
That was kind of my mindset whenever I went in there to watch them. I was like, I'll be all right. I've heard louder, but it's
they're
pretty
like,
loud.
oh Jesus Christ! Especially at the sinkhole, that's a tiny room.
Yeah,
Right, it's a little
it
venue.
definitely was.
Was that your first time there?
Yes, it was actually. I had never been there previously.
What do you think of it? I love that place.
I was about it. It was definitely the type like venue that I would have been very attracted to back in my hardcore playing days. for
Right.
Oh,
sure.
dude, the hardcore show there is ridiculous.
Yeah, I can imagine. There was a little moshing going on surprisingly there
Oh,
for
really?
a bastard, and yeah,
All right,
I didn't get it, but they didn't get too ridiculous,
Right.
with it.
I mean, hell,
I'm-
we've seen
I'm
a
an
mosh
old
at a
fuck
circus
now.
show at one time.
Yeah,
so-
that's true. I have seen people try to fucking mosh at Circus Survive, which
Yes, that was
That's-
wild. That was one of the weirdest things.
yeah,
dude, they just weren't high enough.
evidently
Exactly.
not, but they were. It was like little teenagers too.
Yeah,
Okay,
you gotta get to that level to
So there's
understand
that.
Anthony Green's music for sure.
dude, for
Yeah.
real.
Well, hey, it doesn't hurt to watch a little Fister with the little
Little buzz.
Yeah.
Right,
little-
right.
little green kind in you.
I haven't done that because if I do any of that, I'm fucking useless. I can't drive. I can't do anything. I just sit in a chair and stare at stuff.
Yeah, right.
Well, there's all different kinds out there, so you
Right.
can, there's probably something that fits you.
Right.
Let's get back on what you got going, boss. What's going on with Grave Neighbors? How's the band doing?
Fucking great. We just got final mixes back for 4 songs that we recorded back in January.
Okay.
Nice.
We're just going to kind of sit on them. I think 2 of them might go out on a split with Breakmouth Annie, the band I was talking about before.
Yeah.
Bob got new band members, and I was talking to him. I was like, hey, you just want to do the split now? He's like, yeah, okay, sure. And so hopefully we can find a label to put that out on and get a split 7 out. Use 2 of them for that and hold on to the other 2. Not sure what we'll do with the rest of them. And then let's see what shows wise. We have August 6th at the Sinkhole with Breakmouth Annie.
And that's the band you guys are going to do the split with, right?
Yes, with Breakmouth Annie, 2 houses from Chicago and Bedspin from Carbondale.
Okay.
Okay,
So
cool.
that'll be super fucking rad.
Carbondale, man.
Carbondale used to be
Wow.
a hotbed for pop punk.
Oh yeah,
Dude,
big
Carbondale
time.
is still a hotbed. It's
Is it?
Yeah, it's just I'm 43 and they're all like 20, so I don't know any of them, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about too. The Sinkhole I know is kind of a pretty popular venue for punk shows in particular, but where are some of your more routine places that you guys are playing at?
for the most part, Sinkhole and Heavy Anchor.
Heavy Anchor.
Yeah, those are right now. Honestly, in St. Louis, those are only 2 rooms that are feasible for the most part. After that, it's like 1,200 cap rooms. Like even Red Flag that Bob from Fubar opened. Like I've played there a few times, but it was smaller shows that drew like 75 people in a room that's like 1,000 cap. That doesn't look like fucking anybody.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, for like right now, that's the only 2. There's a house over off of Cherokee called the Pink Pit that is doing basement shows.
Oh shit.
And Darren, my guitarist from Grave Neighbors, we went there one night because it was right by his apartment. And it was fucking amazing. Like just little kids everywhere.
That's
Just
awesome,
cool.
dude.
fucking going off. It was fucking rad. Like
I love to see it still.
it made us feel good. Like the Grinch, my heart grew 2 sizes that day. I'm like, yeah, they're still doing it.
Hell
There's,
yeah.
there's a tons of great fucking young punk rock bands up here in the city that are just doing their thing. And it's crazy because they're doing like older stuff. Like 80s hardcore type stuff.
Very good.
And then there's like another batch of bands that are doing like late 80s, early 90s, post-punk, early grunge type stuff. And I'm just like, how the fuck do you even know what this is?
It's like a fucking revival, man.
Yeah, seriously, there's a band, Chainsaw Boys. It's a 5-piece band. The drummer is a guy, and everyone up front is a girl, and they all graduated high school last year.
Holy
Whoa.
shit.
That's wild.
Like this past May. And they're like this crazy, like late Riot Girl, early grungy, like just angry fucking band. And the last show that we played at Red Flag, they were the opener. And I was standing there watching them. I looked at my drummer. I'm like, well, we could fucking go home.
Yeah,
they stole
they
the
killed
show.
it.
And like it's 2 guitars, bass, a drummer, and lead singer. And the lead singer, she fucking murdered it. Like
Nice.
she can sing so well. It was mind blowing. And then like
That's cool to see young talent still.
I heard her talking to somebody. She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to so and so college in the fall as a freshman." I'm like, "What?
Yeah.
Holy shit!
You're 18?
You're 18
Jesus.
and just killing it." It was. And then there's another band that's Grip Slime. the singer guitarist, I'm friends with his mom, and like they're doing like Melvins type shit.
Oh God.
Like sludgy all over the place. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, how do these bands even know
what to listen to?
Right.
how to reference this to get to where they're at now? It's fucking cool as shit.
You know, it's really cool. I went to the Failure show about a month ago now, and there was like a lot of really young kids there. And the person they had run on the merch table was asking, "Yeah, how'd you hear about Failure? How do you know about Failure?" Because they've been around since basically like '89-ish.
Right. Old as me.
And these kids were like, "Oh, I found them on Spotify." You know, so like I guess they're coming up on people's daily playlists and playlists and Discovery, whatever. Yeah.
Right, hitting that.
They got to be tapping into somebody's algorithms here,
right?
To get that exposure. Because I mean, I only knew about Failure because I fucking heard their single "Stuck on You" at fucking Six Flags because they were on Warner Brothers.
Oh, is it that band that?
I talked about. Yeah,
that's fucking rad.
They were pumping them because they were on Warner Brothers Records, and they would, put whatever during those little on those little TVs in the waiting line. So, and I fell off of my knowledge of them, because
for the Ninja.
It's exactly. I think it was actually for the Screaming Eagles where I saw them. It was either that or the Bumper. It might have been the Bumper Cars.
Yeah, I remember those TVs.
It was over in the same vicinity, but yeah, it was a big ass box TVs, 19 inches, but they were like hanging from the ceiling on this big ass.
Right. With big enclosure and shit. Yeah.
Yeah. It was almost like they had to have a fucking forklift boom to mount them on because they were so heavy. Yeah.
Dude, that reminds me when I was in high school, me and my best friend, who's still my best friend, my birthday is July 22nd. His birthday is July 24th. So every year his dad would take the both of us to Six Flags for our birthdays. It's what Bobby wanted to do for his birthday, and he always brought me. And there was one year we rode the Ninja 19 times in a row.
Holy
shit.
And then I stayed the night at his house in St. John that night, and when we got back, I could not sleep because I had vertigo.
Yeah, I was going to say,
would imagine,
I'm surprised you didn't have a stiff neck, too.
I would close my eyes, and I would just start the track over.
Oh, man. Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it was insane. I don't know why we did it.
I could imagine, dude.
There was nobody in line. They're like, "You want to go again?" We're like, "Sure."
It's refreshing to hear that there's a lot of younger people out because, we're kind of stuck down here in kind of the Farmington scene, that tunnel, and there's obviously not a whole lot going on down here.
There needs to be something down there because, like with that episode with Doug, like at one point it was insane there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It definitely was.
It was life for a while, man.
Yeah.
And like even whenever I jumped back in the scene in like 2007, 2008, 2009, whenever Dave Starr and Johnny Barton were doing stuff, like once a month we'd get 200 kids at Bob's for an all-day thing, and it was fucking awesome. It was insane. And now
the Bob shows were so good.
Do kids just not like guitar music now, or
no? And this is just my quick theory on all of that because I saw a lot of it firsthand. I did everything. I ran shows, I ran sound, I ran security, I ran doors, I played music, I booked bands. I could see it from kind of a couple different perspectives, but there were some bad actors that kind of got into the scene.
Okay.
That put a foot on an artery.
Right.
And then there was a lot of religious pressure from a lot of the churches that were nearby were calling in complaints. So that put another foot on a different artery.
Which in return puts pressure on the city
on
to
the
put pressure
city and the
on
police.
music.
Right.
Yeah, so the police kept coming and they weren't finding anything at first, but as shows went on and they kept coming to shows and trying to find trouble, then they started finding people with drugs or this or that. So then they'd want to shut the show down.
Was that whenever that Joe dude had Bob's?
Yeah, Joe. Yep, Joe, that was kind of the start of I mean, a lot of people might even take it back to Mancuso taking over the Rock House, which that's a fair point as well.
Yeah, I mean,
there was some allegations of cocaine being distributed throughout the area as well. So the police, I believe the police got involved on a few occasions there. So that was pretty much the end of him as well in that venue.
Well, and then parents start seeing that, and then they're like, my kid's not going there.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right.
They get it in the news. They hear it on the police scanner. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a small town. It doesn't take much.
And honestly, that room was too big for Farmington.
Yeah.
That back room where he did everything, that was way too big.
Really, they could have just opened it up in the front end.
Yeah, move the pool tables out of the way and put the bands on that glass wall.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, that would have been fine.
And I believe that at some point on a few occasions they did do smaller shows like that over the years. Not in great amount.
Right.
I know we played an outdoor show, and I do not know why we had to play an outdoor show. You remember that?
We did play
yeah.
outdoor.
I remember seeing bi-level there, and they had to do it outside because they did not have bathrooms.
Maybe that's what
That
it
might
was.
it might have been something like that.
And the city ordinance was like you could have an outside event and rent a porta potty. So Mancuso rented a porta potty. But yeah, I saw bi-level there in the parking lot. This would have been like 2006-ish.
That'd be the
that
same
sounds
time we
right.
played
Yeah.
and played
It was
outside. So
probably the same show. I don't remember playing with bi-level though.
I don't remember.
Maybe it was the same weekend though.
But yeah, around that time he did a lot of outdoor shows. Did you know he got sued by Kitty?
Seriously?
That doesn't
I
surprise
did not
me.
know that.
Yes, he booked them in Farmington. Terrible turnout. Took the door and bounced.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sounds right.
So
Though.
whatever label they're on, RCA or whatever it was, like took him to court for $10,000. Their guarantee was $10,000
Well, that was stupid to
Shit.
begin with. He would have never been able to pay it, even with the door and a decent turnout.
because nobody's going to drive from St. Louis or anywhere to Farmington to see Kitty.
Right.
Well, I think he had that at Outlaws at the time, wasn't it? Because for some reason he couldn't have it at the Rock House.
This was before. I think this was before the Rock House. I forget where it's supposed to be, but he moved it to the Dugout.
the dugout.
Remember the Dugout?
Which was over by
Farmington?
Sea Barn.
Yeah,
Across
yeah.
the street from.
Oh my!
By the sports
God.
complex.
Yes.
Oh my
yes,
God!
Yeah.
I can't believe he had
Yeah.
it there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's now the school board.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Jesus.
My stepdad and his friend did some security there sometimes on weekends.
You know, when the Dugout moved off of Cars to the bigger building.
Yeah.
But yeah, so some bad actors like Mancuso was certainly a culprit that was named, and Joe and his family. He and his mom got busted.
Oh yeah, for
a few years
distro.
back.
Yeah.
And they were like within 400 yards of a school on top of it and
Jesus.
shit like that.
Right.
Yeah, so that was there for a while. Every time Worlds would play over there, we would get the cops called on us constantly for being too loud.
Yeah.
That's the only reason we were too loud.
Whenever Dave, Johnny, Fro, and I were doing shows there, like Joe would just get tired of the headache. He would get tired of selling pizza and call the fucking cops.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
He's like, I'm tired of doing stuff, and just call the cops. Like, dude, you're making more money than you do on a normal Friday. What are you?
Right. The show that we had with that All Parallels band in Auburn Serene, they're definitely like their first big show that they had. And they were way overwhelmed. It was completely apparent. They couldn't keep up with the food.
Right.
You know, the police got called. Like, we
Right.
were like, I think on our very last song of the set, we've actually got a video on YouTube still yet floating around where you can see and the police lights are in the background of the glass.
At the glass, yeah.
Because we were
through the
playing
storefront.
inside because it was so cold outside. So,
Right. And there was one summer show that we played K-Tet when I was in that band. And I had gotten the Haddonfields to come down from St. Louis to headline. And like before they even went on, like Joe called the cops. And then like, you know, Dave divided up the fucking door money between all the bands. And like I just gave them ours. I'm like, you guys drove here. I'm sorry you didn't get to play.
Yeah.
It's like I still don't understand it.
Put you in a shitty spot.
I still don't understand the rationale of him like, there's 200 kids here that are hungry and thirsty. I'm done. And just
Right.
well,
he was also a piece of shit.
it
so.
became evident. Yeah, he had other business endeavors as well that he was covering.
Well, when he had Bob's, I would see fistfights between the employees all the time
Oh yeah,
because
yeah, it was trash.
at the time I lived like 3 blocks from there and they had cheap beer, so I just walked down there and like hang out with Johnny and get hammered, and like the other two would just start fighting each other out of nowhere. I'm like, what the fuck is going on, dude? He's like, I don't know, it's every day. I still get a paycheck. It doesn't matter. He's like, you want another beer?
Yeah,
I'm like,
I forgot he was working there during that.
yeah. And then after Joe moved, Johnny, Cato, Michael, and I tried to reopen it with Bob. And like, I mean, the damage was already done. Like we had a few good nights. Like we had Firebird Suite come in and play inside. And that's whenever we were painting like the ceiling tiles and all that stuff. I don't remember that.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I came over and hung out with you guys.
Yeah,
a few
that
times.
lasted about 6 months. And then I think we got paid twice and we just stopped showing up. Like Michael and I actually, Michael Barton, Johnny's little brother, like there's around Christmas, it was like the 22nd. Bob came down. He's like, is there anything going on? And we're like, no. He's like, well, we're closing early. We're like, cool, pay us. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you owe us for like 4 weeks of work. And he's like, well, what do I owe you? I'm like, you owe us at least $200. And this was at like 3 p.m. So he wrote us a check and we went straight to the bank and cashed the motherfuckers before he could put a stop payment on it. We're like, dude, this guy is like, different people have different ideas about Bob, but from working there with him, like it was a losing battle, and he'd fucking slit your throat before he'd slit his own.
Right.
For sure. You get to know him a little bit more intimately.
It was I hate to say it, but it was one of those things where I saw that he passed. I'm like, well, that sucks. The dude still owes me like $400, but
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't know. It just left a bad taste in my mouth.
I never really understood. There's a lot of. I think people are more romanticizing the good times that they were having there versus the man himself. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, I don't think anybody really knew him intimately.
No.
He was idolized in some respects. I've seen some people even, kind of paint him with that glorification that you're alluding to. And
Right. It was.
I mean, he let things happen at his place. I mean, he made money. It wasn't like he took from the money that was collected at the door.
Right. He doesn't set aside the fact that he was a piece of garbage.
He didn't give a fuck about the scene. He just wanted the money from the pizza, is what it comes down to.
Absolutely.
Except I did hear a story that Dave Starr told me. Dave came in one day to talk to him about setting up another show, and Bob was like, "Hey, I was watching Saturday Night Live Saturday," and he's like, "That one band, the Fall Down Boys or whatever it was," and he's like, "Fall Out Boys?" Like, "Yeah, didn't they were on there? Didn't they play here?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Huh, that's cool." And he's like, "It'll be $300 to rent the patio." And Dave's like,
Oh my
"What?
God.
How did it go from 50 to 300?" He's like, "Well, the Fall Down Boy or whatever they are played here."
Oh,
Yeah, so he was just kind of a shady fucking dude in Farmington that was trying to hold on.
And then I don't know exactly if you ever worked with Joe directly about doing shows there, but I seem to recall that negotiation there. Anytime I did shows with them, it was just I told them what the band's guarantees were. Everything else they just kept outside of paying the bands. It's this much for a sound guy. I hired Zach a few times to do sound and stuff there, so like Zach got paid, Zach got a beer tab,
Right.
and then the bands, whatever it's particularly the touring bands, of course, got the meat of it, but those guys definitely made money from the door.
Oh yeah, like they were making hand over fist, and I don't know why he would just cut it off early.
And Josh and I specifically were very intimately involved with the Nature's Cup operations there. Josh worked there. I would do all the shows and doors.
I missed that whole fucking thing. I was not around for that.
Yeah,
and I lived up above it.
Is that when you and Brandon lived above it?
Yep, we had a lot of good times there, a lot of debauchery.
For the record, I would like to point out that at Pizza Hut, I never threw a pizza at Brandon.
He likes to embellish things.
For the record.
I just fired him on the spot.
Okay.
Well, he does have a tangent for bucking authority,
Right.
regardless of whether he's in the right or wrong.
I will never forget this. I was assistant manager at the time. We just got through a Friday night rush. One of the other cooks was like, "Hey, can I take trash out?" And I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead," which means I'm going to go out and smoke a fucking cigarette because we just got our ass handed to us for 4.5 hours. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And as soon as they walk out the door, Brandon's like, "Can I go and break?" I'm like, because he was closing, I'm like, "Wait till they get back from taking out trash. It'll be 3 minutes." And he's like, "They're smoking. I know that's why they went outside. They're smoking. Can I go and break?" I'm like, "No, Brandon, just wait till they get back. It'll be 5 minutes. You're going to suck down a cigarette and come back and start doing breakout." Fine. 30 seconds later, "Can I go on break?" "Dude, yes, just fucking go on break. That's fine. I'll handle this." He's like, "What if you're going to be like that about it?" I'm like, "Dude, you've asked me like 6 times to go on break. Just go on break. Go on break. I don't give a fuck. The rush is over. I can handle it." He's like, "No, I'll wait." And he's like, "Man, I sure am hungry." I'm like, "Dude, go on break. Just fucking go on break. I'm tired of hearing you talk. Go on break." And he looked at me and he's like, "Why don't you shut the fuck up?" I'm like,
"Oh."
I was like, "Whoa." I'm like, I looked at him like, "Why don't you get the fuck out of my store?"
Yeah.
Good time.
And he just
Yeah.
he was shocked. He looked at me. He's like, "I'm going to call Mary." He was our store manager. Keep in mind, this is Friday at 9:30. I'm like, "Yeah, bud, go ahead and call her. Tell me how that works out." So he goes back and calls her at home at 9:30 on a Friday. He's like, "Jason just fired me." She's like, "Well, sounds like you don't have a job." I was standing right there. And he hung up. He looked at me. He's like, "Fuck you." I'm like, "Love you, dude. See ya."
Love you. Yeah, have a good one.
Oh, and also, like his first day there, he walks in. We're like, and one of the other drivers looked up. He's like, "What's up, Eric Foreman?"
Oh God.
So since from
he
then, like he was just foreman at Pizza Hut.
Yeah, he didn't care for that. We used to give him that
Topher.
Yeah, we used to call him Topher Grace.
For a time, I even wrote Eric Foreman on his fucking time card.
We always had a running inside joke that he, Ridge, and I, because we were kind of like the three amigos, we would get a group tattoo. It would be Eric Foreman riding a bear with a bag of brown sugar in his hand.
Oh yeah,
Because Ridge was Brown Sugar, he was Eric Foreman, and I was
that's
Bear.
fucking
So
awesome.
That's awesome. That'd be a good tattoo.
That should still happen.
I'm still down. I will happily get it. Especially where I would like to get it is on my ass cheek. In only sensual situations will it be busted out.
Right. And then I remember back from his episode where he said he walked into Kato's basement. He's like, I look over and there's fucking Jason Heob. I'm like, where the fuck am I at? I remember like him walking down the stairs. I'm like, what the fuck is Foreman doing here? Because he was like, your guys' age, you guys are like 10 years younger than me. I'm like, where the fuck did this keep? Oh, okay, fuck. I guess he's cool. I thought he was kind of cool before, but he pissed me off. So I fired him, but yeah. Yeah, Brandon's one of my favorite people.
Yeah. Didn't you guys stopped in and stayed the night with Brandon in Colorado at one point, didn't you?
It was after my wife graduated hygiene school, dental hygiene. For her board, initially, she had picked a bad patient that didn't meet the criteria, so she quote unquote failed it. But the next board exam was in Denver, and I was like, well shit, I know a dude lives out there.
There you go.
So we drive out there, which is the worst goddamn drive in the fucking world.
Yeah,
We split it up for 2 days.
I've driven worse.
And then that afternoon, my buddy who was her patient flies in. I go and pick him up from the airport. And then Friday night, we go and meet up with Brandon. And he takes us to some fucking bar that's down there. It's called like Funigi's or Fungi. Like, I don't remember, but it was
Fuji's and Funyuns.
like,
it
we
Fuji's
just
and
pull up.
Funyuns?
He's like, I'm like, how do you, what is this? Funigi's? He's like, I don't know. I just call it fun, you guys. I looked at him like, oh yeah, it does say fun, you guys. I'm like, all right, cool. Whatever. So like we hang out there and get fucking hammered and start driving back from, he was in Colorado Springs. We drive back from Colorado Springs to Denver.
Close to.
And right after we picked up my buddy that was my wife's patient, we're like, all right, what's the first thing you want to do? He's like, we're going to a fucking dispensary. So we go to a dispensary, we buy a bunch of shit, and like driving back, Ronnie and I just start smoking and we're getting fucking ripped. And we stayed at a hotel by the airport, so there's tons of fast food places. She's like, all right, what do you guys want? We're like, KFC.
Everything.
So we pull up.
Everything.
For my wife's a fucking vegan. We pull up and she's driving and ordering. She's like, what do you want? We're like, 12-piece bucket with mashed potatoes, gravy, and slaw. And she's like, God damn it. So she orders this.
Hook it up.
And we're like driving back to her hotel. And she's like, yeah, so there's, like a little area downstairs with a table and stuff. You guys, if we want to hang out down there while you guys eat. And my buddy, Roddy, just leans up from the backseat. He's like, no one needs to see what's about to happen right now. so we go back to her room and it's just, he and I like huddled over this bucket of chicken, just shoving it in her mouth. And like, we're like spooning out with our own individual sporks, potatoes, and dipping it in gravy and just...
Hell yeah.
Oh, damn, dude.
Did you get some of them biscuits too?
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta get the biscuits.
And then,
choke me, daddy, with them biscuits.
And then the next day she did her exam. It went fine. And that night was the first CM Punk UFC fight. And Brandon, like, knew I was a fucking wrestling nerd. So, like, he's like, hey, I ordered that fight. I'm like, dude, for real? He's like, yeah. He's like, come down. He's like, I'm going to barbecue, have some of my friends over or whatever. So we go down there and get drunk and eat a bunch of barbecue and watch CM Punk get fucking pwned. Yeah, dude, that was so bad.
Was that the Mickey Gill or Gilly fight? Was that?
I think so, yeah. Where he got tapped.
I did. I only watched UFC to see that fight because I wanted to see what CM Punk was
Right,
up
I'm like, what's this jabroni? Oh, he got...
Because I'm not a UFC guy, really. I mean, I admire the skill and stuff.
I was for a while, like the early Dana White stuff. Like, I remember watching like the first stuff, like back in the 90s, and it was fucking insane.
I was gonna say that is what I grew up on. So I watched. My dad got it the first 5 on pay-per-view, and then after that he would.
What was that one dude's name? Joe Kwando, the guy that fucking tapped out from nut shots.
It
was like UFC
remember,
2 or 3, like when it was still just open weight, just basically a barroom fight in a cage, and he was fighting this some dude, and like this Joe San guy like made his own martial art. It was called Joe Sando. Like he had like a full gi and everything. And was like flipping around and being a douchebag. And this one dude punched him, dropped him, grabbed him by his legs, and put his knees to his ears, and starts punching him in the balls. Just over and over until he tapped out.
I'd tap out. I'd be like, I'm done.
The ball punching stuff, yeah, that definitely needed to go.
It took like 12 punches. He's like, da, 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 da. Kind of looking at Big Johnny's like, are you going to call this? Or just like over and over again?
Yeah, do I just need to keep kicking in the balls? The things that I remember more prominently from the early ones, of course, is just anything Hoist Gracie or Ken Shamrock, because it was always down to those two in the end.
Yeah.
You know, there was some people that had some impressive...
Oh, and Dan Severn.
Further. Yeah, well, Dan Severn got in about... I don't know if he was any earlier than 4, but I think he was definitely in by 6. And then Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock had their kind of bouts back and forth as well. And then Dan Severn also did the NWA stuff. So
Yes, he was a former NWA world champion. And so is Shamrock.
well, Shamrock was the very first champion on TNA. So a lot of people don't realize that. But yeah, Shamrock even a few years back came back to Impact. It was a little bit right before they inducted him to his Hall of Fame,
Really?
I guess, deal. But yeah, he even came back and did a little bit of a limited run. I think he did, I want to say it was Sammy Callahan, a feud with him. But I'm probably forgetting some other people that he kind of feuded back and forth with. But yeah, and then The Rock inducted him for TNA
Wow.
into their Hall of Fame.
Dwayne?
The Rock. Yep.
Wow.
Yep, Dwayne Johnson. He recorded something for him. And turned it in.
Man, I bet he had to get like express written permission from Vinnie Mac.
You're The Rock. You do whatever the fuck you
I mean,
want.
that's fair. He
regardless
did
what
buy the
Vinnie Mac
name,
wants
so fuck
to
it.
do. Yeah.
I mean, at the point where he can buy your wrestling name from Vince McMahon,
Yeah.
you gotta do whatever
Right.
the fuck you want.
I mean, he fucking bought the XFL from him, too.
This is true.
Yep.
Oh, do you see St. Louis is still getting a team?
Yep.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I want to go to the Battlehawks for sure.
yeah.
Me too.
We
man.
wanted the season got canceled before we could go, but we were going.
They were getting ready to open the second level of the dome
Yes.
for
Yeah.
fans
Yeah.
because it was so crazy, and then the pandemic hit.
And what's crazy is like St. Louis is like a football town and also a wrestling town.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I wonder what the breakdown was. Like football fans
Right. How many wrestling fans?
opposed to marks. Like how many marks are going just because it's
Hey, color me with both brushes if you want. I don't care. Yeah, I love that. We played that show with you guys at the Planned Parenthood fundraiser.
Yeah.
I think this was like 2017 or 2018.
that would have been
I know it was in June.
yeah, that was at
At San Lou.
yeah, that was a fun. We raised a fuck ton of money for that.
That was one of my favorite shows that I've ever played. Quite frankly, it was a good time. You were great.
That was a
host.
great fucking room.
4 hands
Yeah.
beer on hand.
My friend Nicole helped me put that together, and I think for that we raised over $2,500.
That's awesome.
Hell yeah,
man.
dude.
At one point early in the day, like before bands even started, like there's an older gentleman that was probably early to mid 60s, walked in and he's like, "Is this where the Planned Parenthood thing is?" We're like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right." He's like, "What time does the band start?" We're like, "Not for a few hours." He's like, "We're like, but there's different vendors and stuff that have stuff for sale. All that goes towards." He's like, "No. Here, I just brought down a check." He's like, I just wanted to give to the people that were in charge. We're like, "Okay, well, cool. We appreciate it." He's like, we're like, "Do you want, like, there's food out back or do you want anything?" He's like, No, I'm going to go home now. And like, he turned around and walked out. And then we look at it and it was like a check for $500. We're like,
Oh, wow.
holy
That's awesome.
fuck. Like it was really cool. Cause that was right after,
That's incredible.
Missouri tried to like defund Planned Parenthood
Right.
back then. So that was, probably about 17, 18.
That was going on about the same time that Congress was trying to hold up funds too.
Yeah.
For Planned Parenthood specifically, so federal aid to states as well. So we were getting it at 2 fronts. We were getting it in Missouri, and we were getting it at federal level too.
And that was like towards the tail end of Suicide Dive, the band that I had with Garrett and Tyler.
So that's a great name for a band.
Yeah.
Except we fucked up because we weren't wrestling themed. God damn.
If I was going to ask you about your setup and what type of setup that you're running too. So I see you got an acoustic head there in the background, Ampeg. Is it an 810 cab?
Acoustic 370. It's Kenny's old one from Fister. After he got his white SVT Classic that his wife bought him, he's like, "I don't need this. Do you want it?" I'm like, yeah. So he sold me that. I've had that 810 since 2008. I think I don't know for sure, but I think it might be borderline 90s SLM 810.
Okay.
And then that is a 89, 90, 91 G&L. It's a Frankenstein.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
Don't remember which is which, but the body and the neck are from 89 and 90. And then the back plate, the serial number is a 91 that I got at the pawn shop in Park Hills for $300. Yeah, they had no
Oh
fucking
my
idea what they
god,
had.
son. Yeah. Yeah, I like to stop in there occasionally.
Oh, yeah. And no fucking clue what it is. And then I got a 90s Turbo Rat that has been base modded, and then a dark glass clone that my buddy Lewis from the Haddonfields made.
I need to get my rat modded that I have on a rat on my pedal board, but it's not quite. I've always, kind of my crew's always been heavy on the Keeley mod.
Right.
Whenever you're running a rat through bass, man, that's definitely getting kind of that razor bass sound for sure.
The way it's modded, like if I fuck with it and turn the gnarl up too much, like it almost starts to cut out.
Yeah.
Like it's fucking gross. Then if I stack that with that dark glass clone, it's just a feedback machine. Like if I'm not touching the strings, it's like, Wee! I'm like, this is fucking cool.
So yeah, that's definitely an ear punisher too.
But the fucked up thing is like I don't need that for either band. But I'm like, if I ever join a band where I need feedback, I'm like, I got it.
You got it.
And I blame Levi for that.
It sounds like a good investment.
Once I get it fixed, my backup bass head is a 1976 Ampeg V4 guitar head. I think it's like 100 watts. It's fucking stupid. It weighs like 100 fucking pounds.
As much as a Volkswagen?
Yeah.
Fucking damn near. It's ridiculous.
So you just run the two pedals?
Well, then I have an EQ that it's a 12 band that it had all the way to the left is like a volume boost that I run full. And then on the right side is a gain that I run about halfway. So even my clean is a little gross.
Yeah, a little chunky.
Yeah, it's got some fuzz on it.
Yeah, that's a thing, dude. I can almost, unless the music is specific to that sound, I can almost not stand hearing a bass that's not even just a tiny bit distorted.
If it's too clean, right?
Because otherwise it can, even nowadays, especially with the way that things have gotten so digitized, it can get lost in the mix if you don't have some type of unique sound stamp on your bass.
As a bass player, that bugs the fuck out of me. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
and like I had always played clean until I got that V4, and it just had like, I mean, it's a guitar head. I'm playing bass here, so it's going to overdrive naturally. And I found it in my buddy's fucking closet. One time at band practice, I'm like, holy shit, this sounds fucking rad. And then since then, I've been a dirty bass player.
There you go.
Before that, I had like a B2R and something else.
Dirty bass, man, that'll make all the difference in the world. And it also helps too whenever you are having some of those member changes or you're short a member. It helps fill out the sound too.
I need to take my Ampeg, the V4, to Doc at Silver Ballroom. Have him work on it. He was, back in the day, he worked at SLM. He was the Ampeg rep for Riverport.
Nice.
So he had like
Very nice.
a storage garage full of shit that he would show all the touring bands and try to get them to buy. Like, oh, you like that? Oh, it's almost this much, blah, blah, blah. One night we got him drunk at the ballroom. He started telling stories, and Steven Tyler tried to walk off with like some crazy Ampeg like reverb combo amp. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, oh, I thought it was mine. He's like, yeah, for $1,700 it's yours. That's a fucking bitchin' amp. And he's like, oh, well, I'm sorry, not Steven Tyler, Joe Perry. Like it was Aerosmith playing and Joe Perry played through it.
Joe Perry.
And loved it. He's like, but not $1,700 loved it. He's like, no, dude, fuck you. He's like, that comes out of my check if it disappears. Like, this is a demo garage. He's like, I could order one.
Yeah.
He's seen all kinds of crazy shit out there. Ronnie, my guitarist in Grave Neighbors, actually bought a Dan Armstrong wood body from him several years ago for like $300, and he had it in the basement of the ballroom.
Oh, wow.
Like, he had just sold one to somebody, and Ronnie was just like, do you have any more of those? He's like, I think I have a red one. He's like, how much do you want for it? He's like, I don't know, $300. He was just trying to clear shit out of his basement at the ballroom. And Ronnie's like,
yeah,
don't move, and walked over to the ATM and took $300. And he's like, there. He's like, all right, let me go find it.
Yeah.
And like, it was still in plastic in the bag inside the hard shell case.
Wow.
Yeah, it had like
that's incredible, man.
It had the pickup that you could take out and change out. Both pickups were with it. It was fucking insane. What
a deal. Yeah, man, you could make some serious coin if you tried to flip that on Reverb immediately.
Oh, now, yeah. Like, I don't know what he ever did with it. He's had a half dozen guitars since then. He had a green Gretsch that was fucking beautiful and sounded great. Got rid of that. He had an American Telly that he had for about 4 months and got rid of that. Like, he just goes through fucking guitars. But yeah, it's.
Back on that GNL talk, I actually recently got myself GNL. It's one of their knockoffs of. I'm pretty sure they call them the Donnellys, but they're supposed to be like surfer guitars. that G&L does, or Dohany's, excuse me. But yeah, they get the large soap bar pickups. I got me one of those that's got the tremolo
Hell yeah.
bridge on it. But those are incredible, dude. Those are like a shoegaze machine right there. Like they just fucking are so wild, the range of sound that they have. I played the piss out of that after I got it. But yeah, dude, G&L makes a fine product. Of course, that's the Fender folks. Or was, I should say.
It's Leo. It was,
yeah, Leo
that was after Fender, before Music Man, right?
No, he went straight to Music Man, and then he went to Gino.
Okay.
So yeah, he had that 70s run on Music Man on most of their products, and that's why that 70s run of Music Man guitars and heads and all that stuff is so sought after.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Shit, I've been in several bands that's been through 3 different Music Man heads. I think Levi, actually, the Music Man head just shit out on him that he had.
Finally. Oh, really? Fuck, I played that one.
I think he told Ridge. And that was a fantastic head for guitar or bass.
Yeah, it sounded fucking... Levi, I, and another dude playing drums were in a band for about 3 months before the drummer flaked on us. And I played bass through the Music Man through a big muff. Like a guitar big muff. And we were down tuned to like C.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, dude, I can't do this. I'm like, well, something's going to have to give. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, because everything I play sounds like a fucking fart. I'm like, it's like... as fast as I play, like if I play that fast, that low, that much distortion is just... I'm like, you can't even tell what I'm fucking doing. It worked out to where that guy quit, so I didn't have to break Levi's heart.
I can't remember if Levi recorded a video and showed Ridge and I, but I feel like I did see it perform, because I know you were playing bass on something that he showed me. It was shortly
before. Yeah, it was right before he went to New Orleans.
It might have been with that.
Josh quit to go tour with American Wrestler, and then Levi's like,
that's right. That's who it was.
He's like, I'm leaving to go to New Orleans. I'm like, but fuck, okay?
Yeah, I forgot all about that.
Yeah, and like some of the songs that we did, like he used for, what's the name of his first band down there?
He's in Paprika now. The band before that was Crossed.
Crossed, yeah. There was a couple of riffs that he had from back then that he used in Crossed. It was fucking rad. He's like, do you remember this? I'm like, dude, that was like fucking 4 years ago. No. I fucking love that kid. I miss him. I need to get back down there to see him.
Yeah, he's a good kid, for sure. I actually talked to him about being on the podcast, so he's going to be on a future episode here, hopefully. Run his new band, Paprika.
Yeah, they're fucking good.
Oh, yeah. Levi's an insane musician.
He's not going to be in a shitty band at this point.
No.
Right.
No.
I feel like most of us, anything we do isn't going to be terrible.
He's one of those wild ones, kind of like a Jason Asbury. He can do it all and do it well.
Yeah, and it was fucking stupid, ain't it?
Yeah, I know. Jason drives me nuts.
Dude, the first time I saw him play, he was like 14 playing outside of Buffalo Wild Wings with Justin Brown.
Yep.
Played on drums and just fucking murdering.
I was trying to remember who I saw him play with, and that's who it was, Justin Brown. I think he played at Long Hall the first time I saw him, about 2009-ish.
Right.
Yep.
And I think they played that Battle for Fear before that we played as well, that everybody got fucking ripped off on. Some band drove up with like a bus full of people. Yeah, I don't remember who they were, from like some town that was like 200 miles away or something.
Right.
You know, they got like a school bus rented and brought up like kids from the school.
I mean, that's one way to pad your fucking door, or your votes.
Oh yeah, dude. There's no question that, well, this is just me sounding bitter. This is friends talking here.
So, like, whenever I came back into the scene, like 2007, 2008, like, that's whenever hardcore was king in Farmington. Like, Worlds and whatever Brandon was doing, and like Nick Fulton had a hardcore band. I'm like, all right, cool. Fuck.
There was Shooter.
Yeah, and Shooter. Oh my God,
Shooter yeah.
was fucking stupid good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shooter was awesome.
We played several shows with those boys.
Because in my head, when I heard hardcore, I'm like, okay, cool. This is going to be like, you know, Bad Brains and fucking Ian MacKaye. And then it was just all breakdowns. I'm like, well, this isn't hardcore, but I'm okay with it.
I mean, it is and it isn't.
You're right. And then there was like that weird straight edge contingent that was basically Garrett and company. And I remember, like, I even asked Garrett about this when I was in band with him. I was like, do you remember the time that I asked you where straight edge even came from? And you said, no, I don't know. He's like, I don't know. I'm fucking straight edge, bro. I'm like, goddamn little kids. I'm like, okay, it's fucking... I explained the whole thing about Minor Threat, and he just looked at me. He's like, cool. I'm like, what?
Well, when the first time that you saw him, it had to be well before, because he's actually the person who told me what straight edge was. Because I came back. I went to Boy State down in Central Missouri. I got selected for Boy State for school. It was between my junior and my senior year. So I went to that and I come back. And Michael Jones comes over to my house because we used to be best friends. And he'd come over to my house constantly. We'd play music. And he showed up. He said, while you were gone, I got in a band. And I was like, oh, you did? And I was like, well, with who? And he said, with Garrett and Ridge. And he's like, you know those guys? I'm like, yeah, I know them. And he's like, do you like them? And I was like, well, that's a weird thing. I was like, I don't really know them. I mean, I played Little Dribblers with Ridge back in the day. And I was like, one of the jocks at school was picking on Ridge whenever he transferred over from Bellevue or Caledonia. And I ended up like sticking up for him. I said, so I guess you could say I like him. Where's this leading? He was like, well, we got a show at the Rock House. It's the Battle of the Bands. It's Friday. And this is like a Tuesday. He's like, can you come over and practice and learn the songs on bass and play with us? And I was like, sure, I can play bass. But who's playing drums? He's like, well, I'm playing drums. And I was like, you're playing drums.
Why was he playing drums whenever he was talking to a drummer?
I don't know.
And he's really good at string
and he said,
what the fuck?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And he said, well, that's what I play. And I'm like, okay. And I said, well, what kind of music is it? And he was like, oh, it's like hardcore. And I didn't really know what hardcore was at the time. I mean, I had heard hardcore bands, but I didn't know that's what it was called. Like I was like aware of like Black Flag and stuff like that.
Right. That's how I was too. I was like, oh, cool, hardcore bands. And I'm like, whoa, this isn't.
There was a lot of kind of breakdown stuff and that sort of thing in that band.
Yeah.
And we were a bunch of kids with like whatever.
And what band was that? Was that like a first iteration of Worlds?
That was in a way. I mean, everything's been kind of a revisit of the similar people involved, but it was called At Point Blank, but then it was changed to My Grave at one point. And then Garrett ended up doing his own. It didn't last too long, but that was the first band I was in, and so I ended up getting with those guys and playing a Battle of the Bands at the Rock House, and we won that night. And I was like, oh shit, it's this easy. Like you just show up and you win shit, And
well, fuck, I'm a rock star.
Yeah, and I think we got money, and I was like, it's weird to get paid to do stuff because I had done competition stuff before, never gotten any money, or anything like that. Like I did like county fairs and Battle of the Bands and that sort of stuff, and I'm like, damn, like we got money and we're like a bunch of straight edge kids. Let's go run up a tab at fucking Steak and Shake and go hang out till 4 o'clock in the morning watching music videos and Eliminate Degrassi. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I first heard, because like I said, Garrett had with Permanent Marker put X's on his hands, and Ridge and Michael, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, oh, we're straight edge. And I'm like, well, what's that? And they're like, well, we don't drink or
do drugs,
have promiscuous sex or do drugs or this or that. And I was like,
don't drink, don't drug, don't fuck.
Yeah, and I was like, well, the fucking thing got squirreled.
It's a hardcore.
Yeah, and some of them were dabbling with being vegetarian or not, which I was vegetarian, vegan for 7 years, one or the other.
Nice.
But yeah, so I was like, well, I don't do those things, so I guess I'm straight edge. And they're like, okay. So like, then I like, you didn't have to put a label on it,
Right.
But I was also like a sheltered kid at the time, so
didn't really know any better.
Yeah, but that didn't last too long for any of us except for Garrett. Garrett's still straight edge.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say that, like, all those kids back then they claimed straight edge at X stuff and shit, like all of them, because Brandon was straight edge too. Yeah,
I think he was at one point, but that was before I was friends with him.
Yeah,
I think he was when he worked with me at Pizza Hut. Like,
that sounds right.
Claimed edge and all this other stuff. Like, everyone from back then that was straight edge has broken except fucking Garrett.
Yeah, Garrett is definitely stuck with it.
Yeah,
so props
which
to
good for
that.
him. Which I hope he sticks with it, because he has a giant X on one of his hands.
Yeah, well,
like, we were in a band together when he was getting ready to get there. He's like, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, do what? He's like, I'm gonna do the X on my hand. I'm like, bro, top of your hand? He's like, yeah. I'm like, that's a big step for tattoos. Like, once you go hand tattoos, you can't go back.
Right.
No.
He's like, yeah. I'm like, plus that's a straight edge tattoo. Like,
what happens if you're never? Yeah.
He's like, I won't break. I'm like, all right, dude, you got to do you.
Right.
And then he gets it the day of a show. Like, we meet up here at the studio to load out. He's like, I got my tattoo. I'm like, really, on your fucking picking hand? He's like, yeah, it's gonna suck. I'll be fine. And he was, but I'm just like, God damn it.
Yeah, the thing about the straight edge stuff that I never quite understood is that weird militant faction of straight edge where they like want to go and burn people's bars down and shit. Like,
right.
That's
a little much.
Yeah, definitely. And I know like some of that, there was a movement for that for a minute. You know, like people burning down bars and shit.
It was like way northeast, like
Yeah.
The Bandana Boys and stuff.
like even back in like the late 80s, early 90s, like that northeast hardcore stuff, they got way into just like it wasn't enough to just be straight edge. You had to fight somebody if they were drinking.
Right. Which is like absurd. Or like somebody come out walking out of a liquor mart, you have to go and slap a 6-pack out of their hand, shit like that.
Right. It's like, dude, you're just being a dick at this point.
Right.
Spread the word, yes, but if somebody chooses to drink, don't be a fucking asshole. Like,
yeah.
And like Ian MacKaye, even like that's why he broke up fucking Minor Threat was because of the violence and all of that stuff. Because he's like, no, he's like, he's like, this isn't what that was about. It was a fucking song that I wrote when I was 19 years old.
Right. What do you know?
Because
19?
I didn't want to get drunk or do drugs or whatever.
Right.
He's like, and y'all fucking ran with it. Like, Ian MacKaye hates straight edge, which is kind of fucking ironic and hilarious. Because like with Fugazi shows, he would stop a show and walk off if there was a pit. He's like, this isn't what it's about. He's like, we're here to listen.
They would call people out in the crowds and stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And like several times it would just like end the show. He's like, I already told you guys, we don't want this here. And would just walk off.
Yeah. I know that I don't know if you've ever seen these pictures, but like, this is pretty funny, but Ben Affleck wearing like Boston hardcore band shirts and shit, where the paparazzi will catch pictures of him and shit. I think he had like a Have Heart shirt on. Yeah, he had like a Have Heart shirt on, I want to say.
Affleck is a Boston hardcore kid?
Evidently. I think he had like an In My Eyes shirt on at one time. I don't know if he had like SSD or Slapshot or anything, but yeah, I know he's like a fan of Boston hardcore.
Fucking Slapshot.
Yeah, Slapshot's still doing it.
Are you serious?
Which is wild. Yeah. I mean, I haven't listened to anything recently, but I'm pretty sure they're still active. This is Barrett from the ATI podcast. Each week, Josh and I discuss current events, pop culture, music, TV, movies, politics, sports. Nothing is out of bounds. You can also tune in to learn about rising artists, small businesses. Whether it's music, graphic design, filmmaking, or even a brick-and-mortar mom-and-pop shop, we will be spotlighting folks and their endeavors. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Anchor, or anywhere you enjoy your podcasts. Just search ATI Podcast. We would like to thank you for your continued support, and as always, please stay safe out there. Before we got you off of here, I wanted to talk to you about some pro wrestling, because I know we've already kind of mentioned it a few different times, but we're all kind of pro wrestling marks. Anything in particular that you're heavy into at the moment?
Dude, I'm all about that AEW. I'll watch the Big Four on WWE, but other than that, I don't really give a shit. To me, it's boring as fuck.
For the most part, yeah, for sure.
Because I'm not an 8-year-old.
Right.
Like, I could see, Barrett, how your kid loves it. I can see how your son fucking loves it.
Right.
The little bit I have seen, it's like basically, it's Hulkamania all over again with Roman Reigns.
To a degree.
It's just boring. There's not even like good storylines for me.
Yeah.
I just get bored.
So they've had some good stuff here and there. The Roman Reigns storyline that they did with Brock Lesnar leading up to WrestleMania was pretty good. The match didn't deliver, I don't think, quite to people's expectations because of such a big build that they had, but allegedly Roman had an injury in the match and they had to kind of call it early.
Right.
Taking that into consideration, and it kind of makes sense.
I've been all about the AEW. Like, it's been fantastic. It's a Mark company. I realize that.
Sure. Mark money behind it. Mark promoter.
It's funny. Every so often, my wife would be like, so MJF, work or shoot? I'm like, no, that's a fucking work.
Well, that is apparently the scuttlebutt in some of the dirt sheets that it is in fact a work.
Two of the biggest fucking marks on the planet, MJF and Tony Khan. Like, Tony's eating the fucking dirt sheets. Like, they've gone radio silent since then. So if it was a shoot, MJF, just based off his persona that we've seen so far, he would not shut the fuck up.
Well, he lives the gimmick.
Yeah. Like, in my fantasy booking, it's going to be Punk and Jon Moxley. Whenever Punk comes back, Punk's going to win to unify. And as soon as he does, we're going to hear MJF's music. It's going to be Punk and MJF. And MJF's going to go over and get the world title.
I'm fine with that.
That's what I foresee happening, and that's what I would mark out on myself. But it's just so intriguing, and it's I don't know. I just really dig the AEW product right now. And then you get the crossover with the Forbidden Door. Did you watch that?
No, I did not. In fact, I still have it on my DVR to watch. So
It's fantastic.
I am way behind AEW. I want them to succeed. You know, WWE, I've mentioned it on here before, is kind of the Walmart of wrestling, if you will. You know, AEW is kind of like the Target of wrestling. And, you know, I prefer to shop at Target.
Right.
Personally, I shop at Target as much as I can. But sometimes Target doesn't have what you need. So you do have to go to Walmart. So that's kind of the comparison that I like to make. And it's not that I think that WWE is better. You know, back at the black and gold NXT days, that was kind of my shit. Especially, you know, before COVID, it was running hot.
Dude, like, I remember about the time I moved to St. Louis, I was right when they rolled out the network. And I got it the day it came out. Like, I was like, I'm a fucking mark. And they have a library? Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
The first thing I watched was Starcade 84, Flair for the Gold.
I was going to ask you if it was JCP or something close to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, and I've even thought about this because I knew we were going to talk about wrestling. That's when I was a kid, like, the JCP stuff is what I was attracted to. Yes, I was a little Hulkamaniac because that was.
Everybody was.
Yeah.
There. And it was like, it appealed to me, but at the same time, like, I preferred JCP because it was.
Real.
Yes, it was legitimate. It was more wrestling based. It wasn't the cartoonish shit. But then I also watched Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling cartoon. Like I was,
yeah.
You know, I just watched all wrestling. I watched World Class Championship Wrestling on Channel 30.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whenever I could get my dad to go up and move the antenna on top of the TV, on top of the house, I used to watch fucking Bill Watts.
Yeah. Mid-South.
On I think that was on 24. Like if he was in the right mood where he's like, God damn it, okay, whatever. And watch that for an hour and then have him turn it back so I can see World Class on Channel 30. Like
we were in a good spot, Southeast Missouri, man. We could get a lot of different broadcasts. You could even get AWA at times because it's particularly when ESPN, they had that deal with ESPN.
Well, I didn't have cable. I lived out in the country. There was like an AWA like syndicate. Like I knew who those were. Like, I knew who Larry Zbyszko was when I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great. I could see all of the major stuff. I didn't know who was in Oregon or where Piper came from, but at that point it didn't matter because he's in the Fed. But for the most part, like even as a little kid, I was drawn to the Jim Crockett stuff. Like it was. You know, looking back, I don't really know why, other than like looking back now, like I guess WWF was just too cartoony, over the top, like placating towards kids because Vince knew where that money was. I remember loving the idea of the Four Horsemen, but getting pissed every week when they cheated to win.
Yeah.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like I remember whenever they kicked Lex Luger out because he wouldn't get out of the ring in the bunkhouse stampede so JJ could win. And like I remember Sting showing up and Dr. Death Steve Williams and Bam Bam Gordy. I already knew who he was whenever he came over from
Mid-South
from watching World Class. Like that's in World Class, the Freebirds blew up. Like they were huge fighting the Barbarics. And like I vaguely remember the Parade of Champions where Kerry beat Flair for the title. That was like
brief.
Oh, it was like
days, wasn't it?
Day. Yeah, like 12 days or something like that because Kerry no-showed like 6 of them.
And he was about to head his way up to the Fed, I think, right?
It was right before that. He already didn't have his foot, so he's already on pills. And he was liable, so they're like, okay, well, we just did this because David died, so we're going to go back to Flair. And like, Flair's gone on record. He's like, it was like wrestling a fucking broomstick.
Yeah.
Like, even that match, the biggest match of Kerry Von Erich's life at that point, he was too fucked up to wrestle. And like, I remember, like, the Midnight Rider, whenever Dusty got suspended and he came back
under the hood.
Yeah, under the hood and beat Flair for the title, and they stripped him because there was some old NWA rule where you couldn't wear a hood and be world champion.
Yeah.
It was just like classic 80s.
Kabuki-ish.
Yeah. Oh, great Kabuki. He was world class before he went to NWA. He popped up with Gary Hart in NWA for a little bit, and then he disappeared, and then Gary Hart brought in Great Muta.
Gary Hart, man, that is a guy that is often not remembered, but what a mind for the business. What a big, incredible. I know he's a huge champion of Court Bauer. I know Court Bauer's always talking about, I guess he had a bit of a mentorship there.
And like Gary Hart had a lot to do behind the scenes in World Class too. He helped book and all kinds of stuff. Do you listen to Jeff Jarrett's podcast at all?
Occasionally. I'm way behind on it, but I was listening to it pretty religiously out the gates.
He does like a 3-episode deep dive of whenever his dad bought out World Class.
I know. I do want to listen to that.
And it's really fucking good. Like the Von Erich, the boys were fucking terrible. Even Kevin, like they would no show all the time.
Well, they were accustomed to working for their dad and working in the territory specifically and not having to travel too far. And
no show fucking stuff at the Sportatorium. It was like 10 minutes away. They just wouldn't show up. It's fucking insane. Just some of the stories that he has from back then. Yeah, I was a fucking NWA guy when I was a little kid. I remember one year for Christmas, I dressed up as Arn Anderson.
Yeah, that's great.
I was all in on, like, I was a little stinger, like...
Patriot Stinger with the red, white, and blue? Were you Patriot Stinger with the red, white, and blue, or...
I don't remember.
Neon Surfer Stinger? Yeah.
It's definitely Surfer Sting, but not Crow Sting. I remember in 2nd grade, I had to do some kind of presentation for the class. So I did it on wrestlers. And it was about the time that Ultimate Warrior broke in WWF. And I remember whenever he broke, because all the kids at school were like, oh my God, the Ultimate Warrior, da-da-da. And even back then, I was like the smark. I'm like, oh, you mean the Dingo Warrior?
Right.
From World Championship Wrestling. And before that, he was Blade Runner Rock from Mid-South.
Mid-South, yeah.
And my friend just looked at me like I was like the biggest nerd in the world. I was like, yeah, I've known who he is for like 4 years. Like, I was the worst kind of fucking mark, even as a little kid. Like, I would spend all of my allowances on the wrestling magazines. On PWI, the wrestler magazine that was on the shelf, I bought it every fucking month. It was insane.
How about the Observer? Did you ever purchase that?
I never subscribed to the newsletter. I don't even think I knew what it was. I wasn't that big of a mark yet. But just from like reading the magazines and seeing like, Dingo Warrior in World Class, whenever he still had the mustache and the same face paint and short hair. And then like whenever Sting showed up in Crockett, I was like, oh, yeah, that's one of the Blade Runners. Like, I remember in 5th grade, that is whenever the Midnight Rockers jumped to WWF as the Rockers. And like all the kids at school were freaking out. I'm like, yeah, I've known who Shawn Michaels is for like 3 years. Like, I was like, if I met me now from then, I'd be like, dude, you need to calm the fuck down. Insufferable. Like, I would be
a little too pretentious.
Because I would just be like, well, actually, I was fucking all in. Like, up until like 6th grade, I wanted to be a pro wrestler when I grew up. Like,
we did the same thing. Of course, I'm about 8 years behind you or so, but I still would watch a lot of the syndicated old shows and stuff like that. So I was pretty aware of everybody, and a lot of them were still around in the business. And my awareness too, a lot was during the Oklahomania boom and through the Rocky movies and this and that.
Right.
So like, just always had a pulse on it, but we really religiously heavily got into watching wrestling. Yeah, and the games too helped.
The video games.
Yeah, the early video games, the early 90s, some of the WrestleMania games, with Bret Hart, the arcade games in particular. Right. I always thought Bret Hart was like cooler than the other side of the pillow. I want to be like him, want to look like him.
Right.
Like with the shades and everything and the leather jacket, just long, stringy hair. I wanted to be like look as badass as he was. Well, I love Shawn Michaels is on my Mount Rushmore probably. Well, I used to be, I should say. My tastes have changed over the years.
Not to interrupt, but Barrett, what is your Mount Rushmore?
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
All right.
Ric Flair.
Yes.
Shawn Michaels.
Okay.
Or Bret Hart. I've went back and forth on that over the years.
That's fair.
And this one's gonna throw everybody for a damn loop, but AJ Styles. Because I've been following him since he was WCW Cruiserweight Tag Team Tournament. I've been following him that long. So
like I vaguely remember from that, and then TNA popped up. I'm like, oh, it's that kid.
Yes, that's exactly how
I mean, he popped up on TNA. I'm like, I remember like this kid is the next big thing.
Yes, that's exactly what I said when it happened. Like, I got the first TNA pay-per-view. I begged my dad so I could watch it so I could see him. And then Scott Hall was on there, which I was a huge Razor Ramon fan. And that's what we mentioned earlier, but Ken Shamrock ended up being the first champion.
Yeah.
Jeff Jarrett was there. They eventually brought in Sting. So, but AJ Styles, I know that's going to throw people for a loop, but
Dude, that's fair. Mine is probably, you can't not put Hogan on there.
yeah. If we're talking most successful or greatest wrestlers of all time, though, too, that's a different discussion. I'm just talking my personal.
Like, as far as workers go, like, he's not even in the running. Workers, It is Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton.
Hell yeah, Bobby Eaton. Midnight Express, baby.
Like you, it comes down to either HBK or Brett. I'm going to go with Sean just because we're birthday buds.
Well, Sean had, I know this is going to be probably like, I feel like I'm betraying Bret Hart here, but Sean had more longevity. Sean, in my opinion, had a more charismatic promo.
Yes, he did.
But they're both equally great in-ring tacticians. It's just a different style.
Right.
For me, here's the thing. Another thing is Sean could work with anybody in any style.
Yeah.
Brett made people bend to Brett.
He did. But he did get some like the best matches out of people too. So he had a really good run in the mid 90s in particular in WWF. Like his work from like 93 to 97 is impeccable in particular as a singles.
And see for me, that's about the time that I dropped off because everything went to cable.
Yeah.
Right.
And I we didn't have cable when I was in high school. So like I moved to Farmington area, Park Hills in 97. And we got cable, and all of a sudden the fucking NWO. I'm like, wait, Hulk Hogan's a bad guy?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big life changer.
Fucking Razor coming in thing. Like, I missed all of that. Like, all of the beginning of Nitro and the beginning of Raw. Because it was on cable, and I didn't have cable.
I was so lucky. We stole cable. So that's the only reason I had it. My dad figured out how to steal it. And I literally started like my heavy fandom. I was starting to get on this earlier, but my heavy fandom started like right as the Attitude Era kicked off. NWO just started. Different people point to different things with the WWF stuff, but right in that heart of the 83-week battle back and forth.
Right.
Well, 83 weeks of WCW kicking their ass, quite frankly, but
right.
But just all of that, all the way into the Attitude Era. I fell off for a few years, picked it back up in the Attitude Era, and then probably dropped off like 2006ish all the way until about 2015. I got back on, but so I missed a lot of good years, from a lot of good people. Like CM Punk, for example. I knew who he was because I had seen him in TNA. He was actually in TNA briefly in 2004, 2005 with some of his ROH stuff with Raven bled over on to TNA. So, but
that was about the time I got back into, it, like, late NWO era, like 97, 98, like, when there was fucking 40 of them. And I was watching Nitro and all that stuff, and then fell off a little bit again. And then like I was dating this girl, and like her brother and her brother-in-law were way into it. That was about the time that TNA started, which is also during the Ruthless Aggression era for WWF. And it was about the time whenever they changed, like get the F out. And like I was watching wrestling 4 nights a week because they had Sunday Night Heat and 4 nights a week plus the Friday show. And, like, I was just fucking all in. I'm like, this is fucking... And it was good back then, like, the Fed was.
Yeah.
Somewhere at my parents' house, I have the fucking PWI 500 with Chris Benoit on the fucking cover. He was rated #1. But, like, I was just, like, all in then. And, like, I had been kind of reading before that a little bit. And, like, I had heard of CM Punk and Samoa Joe. And then, like, all of them came to TNA. I was like, holy shit. Like,
yeah.
Both of, like... I'm like, okay, this is a CM Punk guy. I'm like, yeah, he's that fucking good. Like,
right.
It was about the same time he had done a little bit of Ring of Honor first, and then went to TNA, was bouncing back and forth. But they all were then, like, AJ was in Ring of Honor and NWA Wildside down in Florida, and it was just, like, the indies were blowing up. Like, then, like, I read about Samoa Joe, and, like, I hadn't seen any Ring of Honor because then it was still just tape trading. So I read about him, and then he shows up. I'm like, holy shit. And then I started reading about this guy named Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson. And I was just like, all right, well, who the fuck is this kid? And just kept reading and like, he's Ring of Honor. Like, I didn't know anybody that had tapes. I didn't have a get him, and then like he pops up in the Fed. I'm like, even initially, I'm like, oh my god, this dude is fucking phenomenal.
Trained by Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, and I'm just like, holy like, and then he had his fucking Fed run, which had its high spots. I was really pissed whenever he lost to fucking Sheamus in what
Oh yeah,
15 seconds at WrestleMania, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was stupid.
And like, why did he just lose to the big white ginger? That's fucking dumb.
Yeah.
That dude couldn't wrestle his way out of a brown paper bag that was wet, and
no
guy that's like an actual worker.
Honestly, the best thing they've ever done with Sheamus was the bar with Cesaro whenever they did their heel run together.
Yeah, that was really good. Oh, did you see that he popped up?
Yes, I did.
Claudio?
And he has but looked like a man amongst boys in everything that he's done since. Manhandling, like throwing Sammy around, and he just beat the shit out of Sammy in that War Game. Well, I'll just call it War Games, but it's Blood and Guts match that they had.
Oh, dude.
He just beat the fucking ever-living piss out of him.
Straight out the gate in that, when he first came in.
It's insane just how much further he is along the... I mean, he's a different level, for sure. I've always been a big Claudio fan. I've always felt like he was never done justice. I felt like he was the best wrestler during the pandemic era. Like, he was like one of the few people that got it, that knew how to wrestle without a crowd.
Right.
And like his shit still came off real. When he was hitting people, like you audibly could hear it. It picked up on the mics, even as bad as they tried to like deaden the mics and stuff. Like,
right.
Fucking Kevin Dunn's a dick about that in WWE.
Dude, fuck Kevin. Did he get fired?
He did not. Not that I'm aware of anyways, unless it just happened before we got on. Johnny Ice has been put on, I think he's like on leave. He's not officially been fired yet. Bruce Pritchard took over interim talent relations.
Dude, all of that mess is fucking insane too.
Oh, that's crazy. I still don't think we have heard the last of it.
No, like I had saw an article that like implicated fucking Johnny Ace in it too.
Yeah, essentially, I think the understanding is at least that it was Vince's pet at first, this woman, and then got handed off to Johnny Ace and had to work under Johnny Ace. And then I guess he started having his way with her or whatever was going on there. But that's why she had it in. But whenever you're making $100,000 as a paralegal, first off, in the WWE, which just seems a little high to begin with for just a paralegal, and I'm not trying to piss on paralegals, but I listened to Cornette's podcast, and he did he had Brian check like what the listing was on Indeed and ZipRecruiter for paralegals in the Stamford, Connecticut area, and the starting wage was like something stupid, like maybe $46,000 a year or something.
Right.
And they hired her on at $100,000, and within a year she had a raise to $200,000.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the end of her second year, she resigns with a $3 million NDA.
Right. A $3 million. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'd let Vince McMahon fuck me for $3 million. I'm first here to say it. Hell, I'd let him do it for $1 million.
Hey, as long as he gave me a cut of that Blue Chew money.
Yeah, no doubt. For sure, man.
It's fucking crazy. And something else I'm excited about when Ring of Honor gets a TV deal.
Yeah, fully rebooted.
One of the things I really like about AEW is their quarterly pay-per-views. But man, this summer they're trying to hammer me hard.
Oh, I know. I am thinking about buying that Ring of Honor pay-per-view just because the match card's getting sicker.
Damn, I just paid $40 2 months in a row, and now I'm going to pay $40 again in the same goddamn month. Shit. It's Joe versus Jay Lethal for the TV title.
And FTR and Briscoes, too, for the tag shapes. Yeah, for the ROH tag titles.
Oh, my God.
FTR called them out on Dynamite last night, and you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, they're going to retain. Like, I feel like they're going to put the AEW straps back on them just so they can have
4 belts.
Fucking all of the gold. Like, that's because they already have 3.
Dude, they're the best. Why not? I mean, come
yeah.
on. The absolute best. Best in the business.
Why has Tony not pulled the trigger on doing a quote unquote 4 horseman stable with them, Adam Page, and some. Ooh, MJF would be.
Do it with Wardlow. If it's babyface.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be like a tweener.
Did you watch Dynamite last night?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that FTR had a promo on there. That's where they were called out the Briscoes, but of course, Wardlow won the TNT title last night.
Dude, I popped for that. I was fucking.
Oh, yeah. He's over, insanely,
fuck.
dude. And they just need to limit him on the mic. Is the only thing. Because they're getting a little too ahead of themselves with that one. But yeah.
Honestly, super excited about wrestling right now. It's so good outside of WWE. They could almost do with what Vince initially planned on doing when he bought WCW. Like, 2 complete separate brands, like, that also cross over. And
yeah, it's a way of keeping things fresh. Rotate the talent.
And I like the stuff with like New Japan crossing over and the AAA stuff. Even though that got fucked up with AAA and New Japan for Forbidden Door. But
and injuries.
Right.
You know, no Daniel Bryan, no CM Punk. I mean, those are my two favorite wrestlers.
Right.
Or Bryan Danielson, excuse me.
I prefer to call him Phil.
Phil, you guys got a relationship like that?
No, honestly, I'm kind of over it.
Oh, over the CM Punk moniker?
Or just CM Punk.
The gimmick?
Just everything.
I like him being there. He seems like he's turned over some other leaf in the sense that, like, a lot of people, he's influenced, like FTR and some other talents that you hear, you know.
And I get all that, but I'm just like, you're from roughly the same class as Bryan Danielson, and I'm sorry, but Danielson could run rings around CM Punk.
Oh, I mean, come on now. There's no conversation even to be had there. Yeah. But CM Punk still, even as rusty as he might be, still holds down a good classic style, good sound, psychological match.
A lot of people, but honestly, I feel like this is like, him right now is like Flair's run with fucking Batista, Triple H, and Randy Orton. He's just kind of
evolution.
Just kind of like the back end, like, all right, Phil, you got your world title here. Fucking drop to somebody else, and then just be a coach.
He doesn't need it, and the only reason he's getting it is just this is the case that the champion, the person's making the championship, it's bringing a little bit more of a prestige to it. So he is strictly the champion to perpetuate somebody else. That's all that's happening here.
I think it's gonna be fucking MJF.
It should be MJF. MJF, I think, would be an insane chicken shit heel for a good 18-month plus run.
Yeah. MJF, he's impeccable in the ring if you give him somebody that knows what they're doing.
Him and Darby still have my favorite match the last 2 years, I think.
Yeah, they fucking went out. I'm iffy on Darby. Just because
I like Darby.
I'm not super big into the fucking crash bang train wreck.
I'm not, but he's different, man. He is different. The way he delivers, like even like his suicide dives and shit like that, like he just comes with a different type of momentum. And I know a lot of it has to do with his size. He's a little bit smaller guy, so it looks a little bit more violent, but he can do some chain wrestling and stuff, you know. I've seen it.
Right.
He can do it. So like he's not just a crash and burn guy. I get that that's what he gets pigeonholed into doing more times than not. But I mean, you have to think he's not been in any of these blood and guts matches yet. And I mean, like he'd be a prime candidate, right? If that's who he is.
Jericho's too busy taking up all those.
Well, we know that. Now, if you'd made that comment about tired of the Jericho thing, I'd get with you on that comment. Paint that CM Punk talk you had a second ago and move that over to Jericho, cut and paste.
And what's really frustrating to me is, like, historically, Jericho every 2 to 3 years drops off for a year, 9 months, comes back brand new and keeps it fresh. The Jericho Appreciation Society, I'm like, dude, this is the same fucking gimmick, just different people.
Right.
And you quit drinking so you're in shape. But you're also high as fuck for every just in-ring promo.
Yeah.
Dude, if they're just doing promos or even matches, if it's a tag match, like that dude does bong rips before he comes out. Because he'd be black.
There's something going on there.
Flaws and his eyes are completely bloodshot. I get it, but like most people don't fucking care. And I can't help but think that like the majority of the fans in the stands that are singing the song honestly think Judas is a good song.
Oh, yeah. It's
fucking terrible. It's fucking...
No, it's not good. No.
It's a shitty cock rock song.
I mean, that's what Fozzy is, so... Shitty cock rock band.
And it was fucking horrid.
I can imagine, dude.
It was terrible. Then I saw...
They just played Pops a few months ago. I couldn't bring myself to go watch them, even though it'd been cool to try and meet Jericho, but there was no chance of meeting him, I don't think.
Not at this point.
No.
I saw him like... Whenever he had quit WWE, just doing New Japan, but hadn't, he had still told Vince, he's like, I'll never work for another company in America. They did. They came to...
So that was a lie.
Well, money talks, bullshit walks.
That's right.
And like, I saw him at Food Bar, and like, oh my God. This even before like Judas came out, it was just like, I'll go see Fozzy, because I'm a fucking nerd. I'm like, oh, this is fucking horrible. Like, it's... like the worst cock rock you could ever fucking imagine.
You didn't pay for the VIP experience, did you?
Oh, fuck no. I'm not even sure.
You get the acoustic set.
I'm not even sure. I think the one guy that was working the door, I knew him. I'm like, hey, I'm just a wrestling nerd. He's like, yeah, go ahead. So I think I got him for free, but it was fucking terrible.
I honestly, there's times, man, that I just feel embarrassed to be a fan, quite frankly, regardless of what I'm watching, though, because just there's horrid shit out there. Like, the consistency isn't there that it used to be. You know, back to the Attitude Era, even Ruthless Aggression Era, like, there was... like, you could watch it, somebody walk in, and you not be totally embarrassed about what you were watching. And nowadays, I feel like I gotta, like, every 5 minutes, like, all right, when's the adult stuff going to start happening? Something that's going to intrigue me. Like, there's very few things that are keeping me engaged nowadays.
And like even like last night watching fucking Dynamite, like whenever Christian came out with fucking Luchasaurus, I'm like, what am I? If I'm like, I'm gonna go poop and smoke, and that's what I'm like. I don't give a fuck about Christian. Sorry, I don't.
I do like the promos he's been cutting the last couple of weeks. But he's just like basically being MJF.
Right, he's just playing. And like back in the day, I love Christian. I love the Peeps thing that he did with the Rocks, with the Rock. Like it was fucking great. But I'm like, dude, you're fucking in your. If you're not 50, you're damn close. Why are you taking a spot? That's always been my thing with like older guys. And I even got that way with Flair. I'm like, you're taking someone's spot. Stop. He's taking a spot. Just like why just go away, go back to WWE, do one more run with Edge, and go into the Hall of Fame. And then they teased the whole thing with Matt Hardy last night. I'm like,
been there, done that, seen that too many
I
times.
rolled my eyes and was like, I'm going to go to the bathroom and go smoke. I'm like, you guys did this literally 20 plus years ago.
They just did it to have something for Matt to do with Jeff out. That's all there was. You know, somebody else to get some heat on Luchasaurus with this heel turn.
And honestly, I don't give a fuck parties anymore. Like,
I don't either. They're such a shell of their former selves. They've just deteriorated so bad in the last 4 years.
I think it's funny whenever like people like that come in. I'm like, oh, that's Tony being a mark and throwing money at it.
Just because he can.
Because he can.
Yeah.
He's like, I want Hardy's under contract just because. I'm like, that's a terrible fucking idea. Nobody cares.
Well, he also gets influenced by the Young Bucks on things sometimes that's probably not the wisest business choices, you know, with some of these signings that they have.
Yeah, but at least the Young Bucks are funny.
Sometimes.
I have a love with them.
I have a love-hate relationship with them without a doubt. They are the reason that I got back into wrestling. Because I saw some clip of a super kick party that they were doing on an indie show, and I was like, what is this? And being a big Shawn Michaels fan, of course.
Right.
You know, I was like, what the fuck? Like, these guys are just, like, super kick was like my finish whenever I'd make myself in wrestlers in games. It was either stunner or super kick, usually. And I'm like, holy shit, like, these guys are running around super kicking the shit out of everybody. This is really cool. I need to, like, check out more stuff. And then found out they were, like, in the Bullet Club and a part of a faction. And, like, oh, I'm getting, like, NWO vibes here, like, present day.
Dude, like, once I heard about Bullet Club, I was like, oh, shit. Like, I had heard about them right before AJ left. I was like...
Me too, yeah.
Well, no, I take that back. It was whenever Finn came in. Or was Finn after AJ?
Finn was before AJ.
Yeah, whenever Finn came in, like...
Finn started it with Gallows and Anderson.
Yeah, and then I heard AJ took over. I'm like, well, that's fucking cool. And then that's when I started up way too late on January 4th, watching Wrestle Kingdom.
And then Kenny took over for AJ.
Kenny took over, and then... Adam Cole was the U.S. leader. Yeah. Which I hope really quick because I think the only reason Kenny didn't show up at Forbidden Door was because Cole was already hurt.
Maybe.
And then, like, his match with... Dude, you could see when he got really hurt because, like, they immediately went to the end. With Jay White, that was abrupt. Like, okay. Once I heard he got hurt, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think they've done Cole any favors in AEW for the most part, too. It's like, he shouldn't have lost to Orange Cassidy. That was just absolutely silly. Yeah, my biggest complaint with AEW is some booking mishaps, and then there's some things that make TV sometimes that should not be on TV. It makes me embarrassed to be a fan.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about Jade Cargill?
I want to not like her, but her look is so good, and she talks to like really good shit. And she's like a deer on ice when she wrestles, but
still undefeated.
I tell you where the money's at whenever she gets to WWE because they'll know how to package her and they'll make all kinds of fuck ton of money off of her.
Yeah, who else do you think will jump?
If Wardlow's smart, he will.
They will know what to do with him because he's a big guy, and that's what they're going for now. I hope MJF doesn't because he'll just get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, they're not doing Eli Drake any service, service right now. He's Max Dupree, and apparently I didn't watch SmackDown last Friday night, but apparently they had him doing something atrocious, like he's got his new male models out, and he was doing some kind of funky, I guess, accent of some sort that he's trying to figure out. Like, I was afraid that he would go there and Vince would fuck him up. Like, he was one of the best talkers in pro wrestling.
Right.
That dude just needs to be himself turned up to 11 Stone Cold style. Like, he's one of the few people that wrestles and looks like a good in shape classic wrestler. Cuts a good promo. Like, he would fit right into those JCP days in the 80s without question.
Honestly, that's why I have Peacock. I go back and watch old JCP stuff.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of good old shit there.
It's just so ridiculously good. Like, an honorable mention for my worker Mount Rushmore is Barry Windham.
Yeah, he's great for sure.
He's my favorite. He's in my favorite Horseman lineup. My favorite Horseman lineup was Rick, Arn, and Barry. That was after they kicked Lex out.
That was a good lineup, and I've heard a lot of people say that that's their favorite.
Because every one of them could fucking work.
Right.
And that's whenever he had, like, adopted the Blackjack moniker and, like, wore the black glove and was doing the claw.
Yeah, not a big fan of the claw finish, personally. It's too hokey.
It's weak and hokey.
It's different if you're Andre the Giant or, somebody like that. You could get away with that, but...
Yeah, fucking goddamn Andre. Like, name a more generous fucking wrestler that's ever lived. Like, if he lost, it's because he decided.
Oh, no question.
One of my favorite, like, folklore stories from wrestling is WrestleMania 3.
Him and Hogan.
Hogan was scared going in because...
I believe it. He's paranoid as it is.
I've heard, like, he asked Vince, like, 6 or 7 times. He's like, so Andre's he's playing ball, right? He's like, and Vince is like, fuck, man, as far as I know, it's Andre. Who the fuck knows? And then he fucking did. And another fucking... One of my favorite Andre stories is he hated baby oil. Supposed to wrestle fucking Macho Man. And Macho Man came into the dressing room and, Andre was holding court, playing cards. And Macho
drinking his wine.
He's like, so, what are we thinking for the finish? And Andre just stops, looks up, and he's like, no baby oil. Doused himself in baby oil. He's like, yeah, I already know. He's like, so what's the finish? He's like, and he just looked, he's like, no baby oil. And then just went back to playing cards, and Macho Man was like, okay, well, fuck me. Which is hilarious because Savage was the most detailed wrestler at the time in WWF.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you heard the story of, like, him and Steamboat's match.
Him and Steamboat, yeah, they totally scripted it out.
Yes, it was, like, almost 200 segments that, like, they wrote and memorized, and, like, leading up to it, like, in the middle of March, Savage would be like, okay, number 197, go from there to the end, then start over. And then, like, Savage would, like, had it memorized and pick up there. Like, that's how meticulous they were about that match, which is one of the best fucking matches fucking ever.
Oh, yeah. I'd hate to see DDP and Randy Savage be laying out a match because, my God.
Take forever.
That's a lifetime.
And honestly, why is fucking Ricky Steamboat not on more fucking Mount Rushmores?
I mean, he is great. I think he got cut a little short, too. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I say short, but, you look at Stone Cold Steve Austin. His career could have been longer if it wasn't for injuries.
Yeah, but Steamboat and fucking feud in the 70s over the U.S. title.
Right.
And, like, Steamboat has had, like, 4 of my favorite matches ever. The fucking WrestleMania.
Well, the Ric Flair trilogy and
the
then
Flair trilogy,
the
WrestleMania was sad.
Macho Man. Yeah, for sure.
The last number 3 of the Flair trilogy might be in my opinion, the greatest professional wrestling match that has ever happened.
It's in the conversation for sure. Isn't there an after angle with Terry Funk where he puts him through the table?
Yes, it's Flair, and there Terry comes in to congratulate him and, like, hits him and then does, like, quote unquote the first table spot.
Right.
Drives him on it and it doesn't break and it just, like, kind of folds.
Flair and Terry went on to have a great match to pay off that angle too.
They had a regular match and then after that was the I Quit match. Outstanding. And it's like, I feel bad for, like, the sub generation younger than us because they've only seen, like, Flair's a shell of himself. But, like, dude, back in the day, like, a lot of marks would be like, well, he was a 16-time world champion because he lost it 15 times. You're right, but also Crockett tried to, like, put it on someone else to see what happened, and it wasn't working, so Flair beat them in because Flair made money.
Right, that's right.
And that just might be me being a guy that likes a heel champion.
It is a necessary evil.
I like watching a babyface chase a heel than it is watching Hulk Hogan getting fed monsters and
for 8 years.
8 fucking goddamn years.
Well, boss, I could talk wrestling all day.
Yeah, I know.
I don't want to shortchange you and anything else that you've got going on that you want to promote. I know we talked about the shows earlier. We'll get those shared on the event page for sure. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks
and
for coming
doing
on
the show.
it, man. It's
Got to
awesome.
bring you back on again sometime, my man.
Thank you so
we'll
much,
see you,
man.
my man, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I go home and wake up at fucking 5 o'clock in the goddamn
I
morning.
know the feeling, my man.
It's terrible.
It's the grind. All right, bud.
See you, man.
We'll
Take
see you
care.
later.
See ya.
Hey, this is Josh from ATI Podcast. For show updates and news about the podcast, follow us on social media. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ATI Podcast 22, on Twitter at podcast_ATI, on Instagram at the ATI Podcast, on TikTok at ATI Podcast. DMs are always welcome. Have a question for the show? You can always email us at atipodcastquestions@gmail.com. Stay safe out there.